The D and Davis Show.
D and Davis Show. It means it's time to get your sports on. Join us. We appreciate you joining us. We're definitely going to do a lot. We got NFL chatter with the one and only Hub Arkush, executive editor at Pro Football Weekly, is going to join us. And then a little bit later, we're going to have Micheal Lee, senior writer for the NBA for The Athletic, is going to join us to talk about the playoffs. Unfortunately, we're going to talk about these Bulls, and the same with Hub. It's not unfortunate. We're going to talk about the Bears and what the Bears are going to do necessarily in the draft. And, of course, you're going to get your up for grabs, Ryan Bukovetsky's key segments to this show.
Yes.
People only listen to this show for that segment I hear in the streets. That's what I'm starting to hear when I'm walking through. Like, more
I've been hearing
Ryan,
rumors too.
More Ryan.
Riding my bike, they're like, up for grabs?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I gotta pull over for this.
I'm Kenneth Davis. You heard Ryan, but the next voice you hear is the chocolate one himself. His name is
D. What's going on, everybody? Hey, Demond Spore right here. Make sure you follow us on Twitter and Instagram at D and Davis Show. Once again, it's at D and Davis Show. You can find the show and D and Davis The Flip on iTunes, SoundCloud, Google Music, Stitcher, and the TuneIn app. Also, Spotify, going through War on Media, and YouTube as well. Simply search for D and Davis Show. Man, we got everywhere out here. Let's see. D and Davis Show. It's on Facebook.com, Facebook.com/D and Davis Show. There you go. You want to hit us up the old school way, email DandDavisShow@gmail.com. I'm on Twitter at Demons1, DEMONZE1. Ken is on Twitter at That's Davis. Ryan Bukovetsky, executive producer of the D and Davis Show and D and Davis The Flip. He's on Twitter at Ryan B. Ski. And our main man hanging out here with the fresh little windbreaker, Puma windbreaker. All right, that we want Mr. Guy. You can follow Guy on Twitter at Pay the Guy.
Can't say Guy Stevenson?
Oh, Guy Stevens. I just called him.
That man's last
Guy
name.
Stevens.
Yeah, that man's- let his
Is
father's
it Stevenson's or Stevens? Stevenson. Like the high school. Guy Stevenson.
Let his father's
Pay
name
the
ring
Guy.
out.
At Pay the Guy. There you go.
As you already know, luckily we get to record out of 6 a.m. to score. Shout out to Mitch.
Yes.
Hopefully you've seen it, but you can watch it again. Check out, our former executive producer, but still one of the main cogs in this show. You can always find him on Dan Davis The Flip sometimes. Tony Gill was on Sports Feed tonight. So definitely make sure you check that out, because that was, I'm sure that was pretty good.
And co-host with the most, Mr. Kenneth Davis is on Sports Talk Live, NBC Sports Chicago. There you go, last Friday. So
I don't know if I really like that term sometimes, to be honest with you.
what, co-host with the most?
Because I don't think people, like when you hear that, people know that we co-host, we co-host.
Yeah, we co-host together.
But sometimes people, formally there's sometimes a host and a co-host.
I can see that.
But
I
that's
can see
the,
that.
I mean, I'm not saying it from you.
Yeah, I get you.
But yeah, Tony, through Tony, speaking to Tony Gill.
Yes.
Tony had connected with Danny Wasaki.
Yes.
At a Bulls function, presser or something, and mentioned to her about you and I. You couldn't make it the week before, and you were out of town this time. Well, actually, you tried to make it, but it was too late. And then you were out of town, so I got the call for Friday morning to be on there Friday evening, and the lovely and intelligent Layla Rahimi was the host of the show.
Shout out to Layla.
It was a terrific experience. I didn't know at the open of the show that it was going to be about the N-word and Tim Anderson.
Yeah, I heard that she said through Twitter, I was on vacation, as Ken said, she kind of like, I apologize to Ken first thing, we know he's going to come with that. But, But I heard you knocked it out the park, though.
She apologized profusely at the end of the show. So she had been thinking about it, and I told her, like, nah, we keep these pistols hot.
Yeah.
So these takes are what they're going to be. If you could watch the show, I'll say watch the show to see what I said. It was, for anybody that doesn't know, we had heard the day before, or maybe even a day and a half before, that Tim Anderson was going to be suspended for saying something with a lot of vitriol towards a member we know was Keller from the Kansas City Chiefs. But we didn't find out till late Friday.
The Rails.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Till late Friday that he had used the N-word to this white guy. And that was the discussion. Layla was setting it up, talking about, that clearly in predominantly black sports like football and basketball that, we know this, that the word flies around. And my only caveat was the fact that we always hear about the low numbers of African Americans in baseball. And Tim Anderson's the only African American on the baseball team. Now, I don't know necessarily with all the guys that are from the Caribbean necessarily that are Afro, regardless of wherever they're
African
from.
descent, but from the islands.
If they're necessarily using N-word in there, whatever. But it's like, usually in the setting that she was setting up, it's a setting where people may feel at ease to say it because they're around people that look like them. We are never have been a huge proponent. I kind of, as I get older, I don't really use the word, but I never use the word for the most part. I know this one could say something, but in the presence of anybody that's not from the community, because I wouldn't want them to feel that there's any way, even though that's that they should feel like that. I think it's silly when anybody feels like they can use a slur, even if some people will say, well, you should never use a slur, and I can understand that. But I would never go into any other community, and if they're using a slur as
just pick it up and just you use it too.
I wouldn't. That's not what I'm not here for that.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't expect anybody to do it in my community. So that was the beginners. Luckily I was on there with Sam Pananovich and Eli Hershkovich and also Chuck Garfin at the end. Everyone was terrific.
Nice.
Definitely look forward to going back. Look forward. I didn't get to meet Cap. He was doing post-game, and he took off right after. I look forward to meeting him. But Layla did a terrific job. Shout out to her. We talked a little bit about I asked her about Shake's, Jackie Robinson's event at Nieces that took place 2 weeks ago, and she just talked about how much she appreciated being. And I was like, the community rocks with you.
Yeah.
So she was like, be at ease. The community rocks with you. So it was definitely a terrific experience. I look forward to seeing when your debut on there.
Yeah. I was actually tweeting with Danny. I was like, hey, I'm on vacay, but whenever you need me, hey, let me know. I appreciate that you and you rocking with Ken and I, just reaching out to us. So big ups.
D, when you get that call, make sure you tell me, because Ken didn't tell me that morning when he got the call to, hey, mark your calendar, check me out on Sports Talk.
Look at this.
I didn't?
Look at this.
No, you did not. I saw the tweet later on or something like that. I was like, what?
That didn't go through the text message?
No.
Oh, yes.
Because you know what? Well, it didn't go through. You weren't involved, so it didn't go through Ryan's song. Which hold on. But it didn't go through Ryan's song. That's the name of the text string that we have with Ryan as the executive producer. And what happened was when Tony texted, and the reason why I didn't say anything is after Tony said it, he called me right after. So there was no reason on our text thread for me to say anything, because Tony had called me and I confirmed we were seeking a confirmation. So, I mean, you know me, I usually kind of play it low key for the most part. So I just played it the way I usually play it. I mean, the only reason I did any imaging is because you was like, we should. I mean, I look at it kind of like this is what we do. So as far as like acting like, I really try to act like I've been there before for the most part. So, I mean, we did do the imaging for it, but for the most part, it's kind of like,
it's another milestone for us, though. It's another milestone for us. This is a show that people actually outside of us in the studio, but our buddies actually was tweeting to them like, "Hey,
dope.
Man,
that was dope."
Yeah, like
Stokes,
Anton Deshaun. They actually reached out to Sports Feed like, "Hey, what about D and Davis? It'd be great to have them on."
Anton, Dedrian, to see
Joe, Sean, all of them guys.
I mean, Joe hit me up early during that day.
Okay.
And was like, hey, I heard, go kill it or whatever. I mean, these for anybody know, I mean, outside of Dedrian, these are guys that were D's friends that I met who are top-notch fellas. So, I mean, you get good guys saying that, it makes you feel good.
Yeah, man.
So that's definitely something. I mean, I'm not knocking it. It's just, you could say it's a character flaw of mine. That's just, I'm laid back to a certain degree. I mean, I know you see this and you think I'm in your face all the time, but really a lot with me, I'm more laid back for the most part than anything.
Yeah, you aren't flawed, Ken. Come on. Yeah. They don't put flawed up on Sports Talk.
I'm flawed, bro.
Hey.
No, I'm a human being, and I try to work through my flaws at all times and try to be cognizant of them so I can improve myself on them.
But listen, the team is growing. More members are going of the team, and We Are Rick Radio team is getting on TV.
Josh
doing
Hicks
things.
will soon be on television near you.
There you go. Sidney Brown was just on this soon. Hopefully Ryan will be on this soon after that. Tony, as you just said, was on Sports Feed tonight.
Hopefully Cal end up on there.
Yep, Cal. I mean, he's going to end up on there. Speaking to existence right now, he's going to end up on there. And then right, you know what I'm saying, you kick it off at the TV at Sports Feed, you kick it off over there at Sports Talk Live, and You know what I'm saying? Danny said I'll probably be on there sometime soon. But yeah, man, it's just growth. It's just growth. We keep it humble. No doubt we keep it humble, but it's good to see from where we came from to where we at right now, man, the milestones we're hitting. That's all. That's all.
Especially with the crew that makes these things go. You see me on there, but that's not just from me.
Yeah, exactly.
That's from, I was telling Tony today at lunch, I was appreciating him, and he was like, nah, it's the work y'all put in. I'm like, nah, this is you too.
Yeah.
So it's when you get in a group of good guys, just I was talking about Dee's friends a second ago, and you get around a group of guys and you go through your things, but you put them in the proper perspective and keep the movement moving forward, you can accomplish a lot more. That's not to say that you don't, even with us, don't have to have individual goals that you try to seek out, but still try to move as a collective positively in the concept of a group. And when one shines, it should just provide a light for the other guys to shine.
And we haven't given up. There's been plenty of times we've told this story on the and Davis show. We told the story on the Flip, or just people in general. We have in general conversation within the sports media. It's been plenty of times, man. It's kind of like, damn, man, I'm tired. Damn, man, the family. Damn, man, do you want to keep doing this? Whatever like that. But you just keep on plugging away. You keep on going away. I had saw on Twitter today, somebody posted a interview with Scottie Pippen and David Letterman.
I saw that one.
And he was saying that, he didn't get recruited for college. He didn't start playing. He didn't start on his basketball team until his senior year.
In high school.
In high school, right. And when he was in college, he was basically just going to be the towel boy, the manager, but basically the towel boy. And all of a sudden, he hit a 5'5" growth spurt. Yeah, he was like, oh, man, now it's on. But David Letterman said, but this is a classic example of not giving up. Mm-hmm. You just keep on plugging away. And you know what I'm saying? We've been able to hit quite a few milestones, I think, in our young professional life here in the sports media in Chicago. We've been able to check off a lot of things. If it doesn't get to the zenith of where we want to go, but we can always talk about and think about the climb to get there and what we have been able to do.
Facts.
Hey, man, our life, no doubt our life on this planet that's floating through space. We've accomplished some stuff.
Yeah. And you ain't done yet.
And you ain't done yet, right, because we haven't given up. But if it was to stop right now, I think, at least speaking for myself, I'll be happy about where my partner and I have been able to get to, and all the men and women in our lives, they were able to push us to this point that's in this room, outside this room, where would you go? I'll be happy right there.
I'll be happy. But one thing again to mention,
I want to keep going now.
Shout out again to Stokes, Anton, Sean, and Champ.
Joe, yeah.
But one thing that I was saying, I'll add to Afton, because just like it's people that retweeted that I didn't even know.
Yeah, man.
As far as, just people that we're cool with, but because if I wasn't added on there, I didn't know. Mm-hmm. And I was saying that the community here in Chicago, when you hear it's so much negative stuff happening, and I'm not saying that stuff doesn't happen, but you kind of have to understand that stuff is put in a certain area for a purpose. But I'm even just saying on the white and black, the amount of love that we've gotten from both sides.
Everywhere, man.
And the community of hand down to pull you up that I've hit. One of the best parts about us cracking into this and growing in this is not meeting a lot of jerks. At least they keep it away from us for the most part.
Yeah.
We're going to have Hub Arkush on here, and Hub has been on our show almost 4 times. If this won't be his 5th, this will be probably his 4th.
Going back to CSR?
Yeah, and Hub doesn't have to come on our show or anything like that.
Meeting him out in Bears practice.
Yeah.
We was covering the Bears practice for the first time. We shook his hand. He's like, hey, man, anytime y'all gave us his business card.
It's been there.
Yep, he's been there for us.
And that's just, I'm just giving you that name, but there's so many people like that, and all we live for is to do that, to come up and do that with others. I will say this. I'm with you, but I'm one thing now. I'm hungry.
I'm still hungry too.
I'm not saying you are.
Yeah.
I want to take a huge chunk out of this real quick before we get out of here and go to Hub. So I got there and I left early, but after parking and trying to find a place, I'm almost hitting the time because in the email, Danny Wysocki tells you to be there between 5 and 5:15. That's when they tell you to be there.
Okay.
So I finally figured out what the place is. I remember first going to the side of the merchandise market, because that's one thing I was like,
oh, it's at the merch?
It's not. It's across the street.
Oh.
But you got to think, even though the merchandise mark has the river on one side, there's 3 other across the streets.
You almost got lost.
Yeah. So I'm running. So I'm on there sweating like I hit some powerful, potent drugs around my neck. Unfortunately,
Layla, is this guy okay?
Man, let me
He's
get
all right. He's all
let
right.
me get the joke out first because I'm grown and I don't care. If this would have been a couple years ago, I would be broken. Like I was sweating. But I'm like, I got home and I kind of mentioned after, and I just started laughing. Like I was on a sweating like a slave. Sorry for using that one after talking about Tim Anderson. But so I finally find out where they record at. And I go downstairs and I ask the guard. I'm like, with the guard, he just kind of like, yeah, go in or whatever. Uh-huh. And I looked, and the setup is so different that when I'm trying to look for it, I still don't know where's the green room or where the guests go. So I have to go back out to the guard, like, hey, where the guests go? So I start walking. He said, go in and make a right, basically. So I start walking. Now no one knows me, even though it's funny because it is doing this. I just want to get this to know the people that know us. So I'm going back there. And I see this guy with a book bag on, and I just ask him, I say, hey, can you show me where the guests go? And he was like, yeah, I was just about to leave you. I'll show you. So as soon as me and him take 3 steps, I hear, hey, Ken. And I look, and like I'm trying to make it out because my eyesight isn't, I used to have terrific vision. My eyesight isn't the same as it used to be. I look, and I'm like, it's Michael Walton II.
Oh, nice. Yeah, he do work there.
Right?
Yeah,
so I'm like, what's up? He's like, what's up? You have some showtime? I'm like, no, ain't no showtime over here. We just trying to crack into this right
Mike
now. Our egos,
there.
we won't allow to get out of whack, even though it's a brother showing love. So I told him, I talked to him for a second, and he hit me. I was like, I have to get back here because I'm a tad bit late, right? I mean, I got there definitely before shoot or whatever. So I said, Mike, I'll come holler at you after the show. I actually texted him today. I was like, man, I'm sorry, I forgot. I didn't holler at you after the show. So that's why I ended up with, talking to Larry. I was thanking him for giving us his opportunity.
Oh yeah, no doubt.
Like that Larry Howley from Sports Feed, Jared Payton and Josh Friedman, and the crew there have been.
They take care of us.
So it was like you got to give props to the people that help get you to where you're going, but also make sure you still stay grounded and kicking it with them for help putting you out there and putting you on. Mm-hmm. So I'm going. So then I see, now mind you, when I'm walking back there, I see a group of gents around one table, or a desk rather, like 4 or 5 guys. So I'm not near them. I'm probably about 10 feet away. This is after leaving Michael Walton II. I hear, hey, Ken. And I look, I'm like, damn. I look, and it's Layla Rahimi, who's hosting there. Yeah. And you can also see I don't know if Layla sometimes does the pre and post for the White Sox, but you see Layla all over Layla Rahimi all over Sports Talk Chicago. I mean,
NBC Sports Chicago.
Thank you, the NBC Sports Chicago. So we start talking, and she's like, yeah, I'm going to come out and put you on. I'm going to say this. I'm going to be like, Kim Davis, saying we're on the score. And I'm like, hey, I'm on there a little. And she's like, I'm going to say the pie. And I'm trying to still get back there, but I'm like, I'm talking to somebody that's cool and we know.
Yeah.
And then we talked about the NFC Championship, the championship game Sunday over in Lawrence House where we met her, which was terrific.
Yes.
And she was saying how great it was. I was like, me too. That was
it was fun.
Dope.
We had a lot of fun.
We had a lot of fun. I was like, I actually look forward to it next year. So, I stopped talking to her, and we start walking again. Now, I tell this dude, I'm like, dude, I know you're trying to get out of here, and I keep stopping while you're, like, this isn't his job, right, to walk people back there. And then I stop because I meet Sam Panovich. I think I'm saying it correctly. Panianovich. Thank you, Ryan. Panianovich. I apologize, Sam. Sam Panianovich.
I think it's Penyanovich.
Penyanovich. Okay.
Penyanovich. If it's wrong, it's on you, Ryan. And I mean, Sam.
I'll take that burden.
And Sam was like, kind of like, yeah, kind of like he knows me, which means he knows you. Which is like, and it's a crazy. I'm like, that's dope. So and then I get in the back room, and it's this lady sitting on these couches, these big leather couches, and I'm thinking, I'm like, I guess maybe she's a guest that I don't know about or whatever. And she's like, you want makeup? And I was like, I guess.
Wow, big time.
So mind you, this is why now she said this. I grabbed some towels. I'm dabbing myself a little, but I stopped to let her do the makeup. Now I've never worn makeup before, so I don't know what I should dab. And I'm sure she's like, "What's up, sweaty?" And but I think it was cool. So I don't touch it because I got to go out there. So then I go out there, and Eli's sitting down, and we kick off the show, and I get word. But no, it was a really dope experience. And the last part, it was funny. We were saying something. It was me. It was all 4 of us. I was saying something, and I was gonna get into some Davis type of candor. And Sam Penyanovich says, "Oh no, Ken, don't do that." right? And he was like,
On the show?
No, this is afterwards. He's like, I was like, what? He's like, no, I could tell you was about to load up. He's like, Jet, don't do it. And I was like, I gotta rock with you. You know me. Like, you see, like, and again, I'm saying he knows me, but it just,
What was you about to go off on?
We were talking about, like, we're talking about polygamy to some type of I forget what it was about, the subject. It was something.
Damn, I was out of town this weekend.
Yeah, we're talking about polygamy because Layla was mentioning like somebody being married or having 3 wives or something. And it was something around that, and I was just about to drop a hot take, and he's like, I was like, I rock with you.
Let me pull you back in.
Yeah, it was like, I was like, I rock with you. So shout out to everybody at NBC Sports. Definitely shout out to Layla Rahimi, Sam Panianovich, Chuck Garfine, and Eli Herchvitz, who of course you hear here at 670 scoring everywhere now. Eli, he's breaking out. I ended up driving Eli back and dropping him off.
That's cool.
Here at the score. So that was pretty much it. You know what? Real quick, I've taken up too much time. We're gonna go to Hub Arkush and start talking about some draft and particularly what you can expect from the Bears here in Chicago moving forward. Dean Davis.
What's up, everybody? It's Cameron Smith from CBS 2 Chicago. You're listening to the D and Davis Show.
Hub Arkush doesn't get any better than this.
D and Davis Show, and right now we're lucky enough to be joined by the executive editor of Pro Football Weekly. We record out of 670 The Score, and you hear this gentleman on here all the time, and he's going to be on here Thursday night covering the draft from 6 p.m. to 10 p.m. He's the one and the only Hub Arkush. Hub, how are you doing?
I'm good. Thank you so much for having me, guys. How you doing?
We
doing good.
Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Hub, it's funny when I just went to get D, and we were talking, and he was like, so we're talking the draft. I'm like, yeah, but how much draft stuff can we talk about when the Bears are only picking 5 picks and they start in the third?
Yeah.
The amount of uncertainty. But looking at the draft and the Bears picking in the 3rd round, and we all know probably chances are the Bears are going to pick a running back. My thoughts with knowing when you were joining us today, there's no positions of need, but when we're talking about positions of depth, what stand out to you as far as perhaps the direction the Bears should take during this draft?
Well, I might debate you a little bit. I think running back is a real need. I don't understand the Jordan Howard trade. I know that we've had made clear to us pretty much by both Matt Nagy and Ryan Pace that Jordan Howard probably was not the best fit for Matt Nagy's offense, but that doesn't change the fact that over the 3 years he's been in the league, there's only 2 other running backs who've had more yardage than him, and that happens to be Zeke Elliott and Todd Gurley. So you're talking about a guy who's in some pretty unique company, and also, you know, he was half your running game last year. He still had 950 yards. So I understand you want to make a change, you want to find a better fit, but I don't understand trading Howard away for next to nothing before you have that player. I don't see how that's going to be Mike Davis, who they signed in free agency. I think Tariq Cohen is, he's an all-pro, but he can't be an every down starting running back, and I just don't see much more improvement from Taquan Mizell. So I think they have a real need at running back. I think there's going to be some good ones there in the 3rd round. Beyond that, I think they've got to get better at tight end. I think that they probably, for a long-range picture, still want to add some more depth at cornerback and safety and on the offensive line. But I think for this weekend, and you always have to go best player available. If you don't go best player available regardless of position, you're going to get yourself in trouble. So I think that they will have that in mind. But when you come up with your pick, there's usually 2 or 3, 4 guys you've got rated fairly close to each other, and if one of them fits that need, that's what you're going to do.
Hub, real quick, let me ask you about Mike Davis. Looking at what the Bears want, you think they want a guy that's similar to Tariq Cohen, but of course stockier and can run through the tackles. Out of anything that you've heard about Mike Davis, does he fit those characteristics?
Yeah, I'm not anti-Mike Davis. I think it's an interesting signing. We'll see what happens, but you can't ignore realities. When you start to ignore realities, this is where you get in trouble. And this is where early in his career, Ryan Pace got in trouble with Pernell McPhee. He signed him and paid him to be something more than he had ever been in Baltimore. He got in a little trouble with Mike Glennon. I think that signing is badly overrated because he never expected Glennon to be the future. He wanted him to be the transition or the bridge to Mitch Trubisky, but nonetheless didn't work out very well. Again, they were projecting something they hadn't seen before. And so now you look at Mike Davis. He's been in the league 4 years. He was a 4th-round pick out of South Carolina. He spent 2 years in San Francisco in a team that was desperate for a running back because Carlos Hyde kept getting hurt, and he just wasn't good enough. He couldn't keep the job. They let him go after 2 years. Seattle picked him up. They've been desperate for a running back the last couple of years. They used a 1st-round pick on Rashad Penny last year. Chris Carson emerges out of the 7th round, but in these mediocre running back rooms, Mike Davis could never take the starting job. And so now to assume that he's going to be your starter here with a 12-4 playoff team, I don't see how you do that. So I think I'm guessing that what Matt Nagy and Ryan Pace are thinking is that Mike Davis could be an excellent replacement for the Benny Cunningham / Taquan Mizell role. He could be a very nice number 3 guy who maybe gets 5 to 8 touches a game, give you a little change of pace over whatever else you're going to do. He's going to be a change of pace off Tariq Cohen. But if you're talking about him being the starter and Tariq Cohen being the change of pace, then I think you're pretty thin at the position.
Dan Davis on the line right now. Hub Arkush, executive editor of Pro Football Weekly and also NFL Insider at 670 The Score. Hub, you just mentioned that the Bears should definitely go best player available. Well, let's just say that the best player available perhaps is a running back. Do you think the Bears will go two-dimensional or multi-dimensional running back or single-dimensional, like a bruiser? And I guess they wouldn't when you look at they thought that Jordan Howard necessarily didn't fit the scheme. But what if the best running back available is a bruiser? Would the Bears perhaps take him because maybe they desire him and he's cheap?
I don't think so, because you have to remember they've got Ryan Null sitting on the practice squad from last year. And that's the interesting thing about the whole Taquan Mizell situation. Null was by far the Bears' best running back in training camp last year. Jordan Howard wasn't working. Tariq Cohen wasn't working. But of the other guys competing for the position, Null was the guy who stood out, and he never got activated last year. He's 6'2", 225, 230 pounds. He's not a fullback, but he is a between-the-tackles bruiser. And I don't know that you're going to do better in this draft, looking at the prospects available. What they're looking for is their number 1 back. They're looking for a guy who can run between the tackles with some wiggle, with some make you miss, with some explosion, a guy who can hit home runs. And that was, at the end of the day, the problem with Jordan Howard, is that he would give you that 30, 40, 50-yard explosion every once in a while, but he wasn't going to be a home run hitter. He wasn't going to run the jet sweep. So that's what they want. And then it allows you to be even more creative with Tariq Cohen. Use him as much as a receiver as a running back. And then if you've got both those pieces, Mike Davis theoretically can do either, and he's a really nice number 3. But no, I don't see them drafting any bruisers between the tackles. They're looking for the guy who's going to be more elusive and the guy who can be a threat to go all the way on almost every play.
Hub, you mentioned Howard, and you think they just kind of gave him up for nothing. So what do you think the Bears should have, or maybe possibly would have been able to get for him?
Well, I mean, to be clear, it wasn't nothing. I guess it's a 6th-round pick conditionally. Could be a 5. I think they'll get the 5 because I think Howard's going to be really good in Philadelphia. I don't think they could get more because they wouldn't have made the deal if they could. Mm-hmm. And in some respects, they may have made a small mistake there. They made it so obvious that Howard wasn't part of the future that teams weren't willing to pay a lot. They were waiting for him to be cut loose, and the Eagles decided they wanted him bad enough that they weren't going to wait on that. And so they gave up the conditional pick. So it's not that they could have gotten more. I believe they could have gotten a lot more by keeping him than they're going to get out of that conditional pick. Now, had they held him through the draft and then drafted a guy who they loved and gone to camp and said, yeah, this guy can be the guy, now it's August and maybe you've got another team that had an injury at the position. Maybe you do get more. Maybe you end up cutting Jordan Howard without getting anything else in return. But you know what? I think he was more valuable to them as a starting back and former Pro Bowler as an insurance policy than that conditional 6th-round pick is going to be.
And you mentioned tight end. Looking at the draft, is anybody out there that you think, like, what? Maybe the Bears should kind of look at him and pick him up?
It'll be in the 3rd or 4th.
Yeah, 3rd or 4th round, yeah.
Well, that's going to be the trick with this. Is tight end is pretty good this year. It's one of the better groups we've seen. T.J. Hawkinson and Noah Fant from Iowa, as well as Irv Smith from Alabama, should all go in the 1st round. Then you've got a lot of players that people are interested in. This becomes a matter of taste now. When you talk about Isaac Nauta from Georgia or Dax Raymond from Utah State, he's going to be a little bit of an older rookie because he went out on his Mormon mission, so I think he's going to be a 24-year-old rookie. I love Zach Gentry from Michigan, but he's more of strictly a move tight end. I don't think he's going to give you much as an inline blocker. The guy that probably is the most intriguing is the one that the Chicago media has covered was brought in for a personal visit, and that's Jace Sternberger, the kid from Texas A&M. He probably fits in the 3rd round. He could go higher than 87. You could be looking at 65, 65 to 75, but he'd be a real interesting fit as well. And then there's other guys. I mean, there's a kid named Foster Moreau from LSU, who's a little more of a developmental project, but could be a real surprise. Will probably be around in the 5th, 6th, 7th round. So there certainly are a number of guys to keep an eye on.
Hub, look, I want to get back to what you said. The Bears, perhaps for depth, would take a cornerback. Cornerbacks in the 3rd, 4th, or 5th that you see that may be potential guys that the Bears could stash and perhaps either just be there for depth or one day perhaps get a starting position in this upcoming draft.
Well, there's a bunch of guys, but some of them are going to go higher than usual. The cornerback has been loaded in recent years. This is not the best cornerback group we've seen. There's some very good ones. We've got 3 guys with first-round grades, another 3 or 4 guys who have either first or second-round grades. Off the top, you've been hearing a lot about Byron Murphy from Washington, DeAndre Baker from Georgia, Greedy Williams from LSU. I think all 3 of those kids, not necessarily in that order, go in the first round. Then it gets more interesting. Michael Jackson from Miami, probably more of a second rounder, even an early third rounder. David Long, the kid from Michigan, who is interesting because he's probably going to be primarily a slot corner as opposed to a boundary guy. And I think that's where the Bears' focus is going to be. They can bring Amu Kamara back for another year if they want to. They've certainly got Kyle Fuller for the long hill. And I think people, again, the long run, I should say, I think people forget another kid they had on the practice squad all year was this Michael Joseph, who they signed out of the University of Dubuque last year as a priority free agent. I know they like him, and you've also got Kevin Tolliver there. So I don't know if they're going to be focusing on trying to find a slot specialist or just the best corner they can. Julian Love is a guy I love, no pun intended, and I think should go high in the second round, but I'm hearing from some that they wouldn't be shocked if he stuck around for a while. Joanne Williams from Vanderbilt, Derek Beatty Jr. from Kentucky. These are all kids who can play, and they're all pretty good cover. Another guy that nobody can make up their mind about is Rakia Sin from Temple. I view him as more of a third-round type prospect, but some have moved him all the way up into the first round, so it just depends on what different teams are seeing in these kids.
Hub, real quick before D jumps in, you mentioned something, and I've never asked anybody this question. What's the draft rate, or where should a slot cornerback be drafted? What's the value, I guess I should say? What's the value of a slot cornerback? Is it if the guy's phenomenal first round, or is it you shouldn't get this as a second or so forth?
Well, that's changed a ton just in recent seasons. It used to be that the slot guy was simply the third best corner on the team, or the third or fourth best corner who you couldn't trust outside. Now that it's become a specialty position and teams are often lining up with their slot corner, their 3 corners on first down, they have not quite the same value, but a similar value to the regular outside guys. So, if you see what you really want is there's a lot of guys who can play both. You get a guy who can line up. Bradley Roby is a great example. Chris Harris Jr. was another one, both in Denver. If you can get that guy, you're definitely going to take him in the first round. Now, if you're going to get a guy who you think is going to be limited to playing in the slot because he's just not good enough in press or man coverage to play on the outside, maybe he's a quarter step slower than you'd like. Now you like this kid, but you think he's pretty much a slot guy, then you're probably looking, I would say top of the third to the later rounds.
Hub Arkush right here on D and Davis Show, recording at 670 The Score. Make sure you follow Hub on Twitter at Hub_Arkush. Hub, Clinton Dix is now a Chicago Bear. Your thoughts on that? You like it, and what do you think his impact is going to be on this upcoming season?
Particularly the running game.
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was one of the best signings of the free agent period by any team. It was certainly the greatest value signing. You saw what these other guys got paid. What Packer fans and Bears fans have to understand, Clinton Dix is a better safety than Adrian Amos. I mean, he's more skilled, and that's all there is to it. He has not played as well the last 2 years as he did the first 3 years, but one of the things that nobody's talking about is those first 3 years, he was playing behind one of the better front sevens in the NFL. When you had Clay Matthews still making a difference in the pass rush, along with Julius Peppers and Nick Perry and Mike Daniels ripping people up on the front, and some of those other big studs they had. The Packers defense has really lost a fair amount of talent via attrition. They've had their issues the last couple of years, and there were too many plays getting to Clinton Dix, and he obviously lost some focus, and he has has not been as physical as you would like. Now you're plugging him in on a 1-year prove-it contract for a guy who's 27 years old and kind of got his comeuppance during this free agency period with all the other guys that got big money and he didn't. And he's got those Pro Bowl skills, and you're putting him behind arguably the best front seven in the NFC. And so I just think he's a perfect fit. He's playing next to a first-team All-Pro in Eddie Jackson. I know there's been some concern that they both probably are more free than strong safeties, but most teams have got these guys interchangeable these days anyway. There's very few teams that are drafting specifically for a strong safety or a free safety. And again, it's all about that pressure up front. As long as Khalil Mack stays healthy, I expect Leonard Floyd to take another significant step forward this year. I think Bilal Nichols and Roy Robertson Harris are going to get a lot better. You know that Roquan Smith is going to get better. And so I think there's a chance that Clinton Dix could look a lot like the guy that the Packers had going to the Pro Bowl a few years ago.
Ooh. Hub, I was listening to Lawrence Holmes one day. I believe it was Alex Brown on the show with him. And he was talking about the change of defensive coordinator and how they went from Rivera to Babich, I believe. I think that was the succession.
When Ron was let go, Bob Babich, who had been the linebacker coach, became the coordinator for 1 year.
Yeah, and he was saying how, a change at the head can affect the defense. Now, you at the same thing, Fangio Chipagano. Are you feeling any kind of way, a sense of like, is it possible that maybe take a step back? Or are you just thinking like, man, these guys, the horses are out there, just let them go?
No, these are two. I get what Alex is talking about, and I love Alex, but I think he'd agree with me if we were both with you right now. Two totally different situations, because Ron Rivera was one of the best, if not the best, defensive coordinators in the NFL. Bob Babich at the time was Lovie Smith's best friend, but not prepared for the job. And Ron never should have been let go. That was all about Lovie's ego, and it was a huge mistake, and they suffered badly. They went from the top defense in the league to 25th, I think, or something like that, and then Lovie immediately stepped back in and took over the defense himself. In this case, I do think that Vic Fangio is arguably the best defensive coordinator in the NFL right now, although he's a head coach now. Chuck Pagano is in that class too. I don't know if you guys
Ravens days.
You go back, they were together there in 9 and 10, and in 10 when I forget who left, but they were promoting from within, and they gave the coordinator job to Chuck.
Was it when Rex Ryan?
Rex left to take the Jets job, and they gave the coordinator job to Pagano, and then Vic left to go with Jim Harbaugh, I think 1 year in Stanford, and then they went to San Francisco together. And so they grew up together. They were only together there a couple of years, but they know each other well. They coach the same scheme. They coach it similarly. You hear a lot about Pagano maybe blitzing more, maybe liking more pressure, whereas Vic Fangio is the number one genius in the NFL at mixing up his zone coverages and mixing in man and pressure. But Pagano is in that class, and you look at the talent that he's got to work with. There could be a little slippage early. There'll be some changes. One of the things I love is Pagano came in and said, we're going to stay with Vic's terminology. It's a lot easier for me to learn than for 20 guys to learn, than changing it. So I think there could be a period of adjustment, but I don't think you're going to see anything near what you saw in terms of the lost production when Bob, well, by the way, Bob Babich is absolutely one of the best people I've ever met in 40 years on the beat. So I don't mean to be overly critical of him, but my guess is that if we could get him on with us right now, even he'd acknowledge that he may not have been ready for that transition when Lovie tried it.
Hub, looking at this division this upcoming season, and you look at the Packers, and we know Aaron Rodgers is re-signed, and Brian Gutekunst went into free agency, something that the Packers haven't really been doing in the past. Do you think the Packers are going to be ready to go again with their free agent additions, or what other team in the NFC North do you think is going to be a team that can challenge the Bears and perhaps try to knock the Bears off the top?
You got to watch the Vikings, guys. I mean, I don't know what happened last year. Obviously, a few things happened with them, but when you just compare talent, you look at the rosters, you look at the front offices, the coaching staffs, either the Bears and the Vikings are the two best teams in the NFC North right now, or maybe the Bears are number one and the Vikings are two, but you got to look at where the Vikings were in 2017. If the Bears are looking for the team to beat, it's the Vikings. If the Vikings are looking for the team to beat, it's the Bears. What we've seen with the Packers until the last two seasons, that when Aaron Rodgers is healthy, he makes them a competitor. He couldn't do that last year. Now remember, he played every game, but he was playing hurt quite a bit. The Packers have had so much attrition on the rest of that roster. And listen, I hope I'm wrong, because when the Packers and the Bears are both good, which is so rare, it's great for everybody. But I don't really like what Gutekunst has done in free agency. I think it was time to get involved. I have no problem with that. But I think he may have committed the classic mistake, overpaying for young players, projecting them to be more than they've been the first four. That's what I just was talking about with Mike Davis. I mean, you look at Zadarius Smith and you look at Preston Smith. These guys have been in the league 4 years apiece, and they've never played to anywhere near the level that Gutekunst is now paying them. And so, maybe you're projecting they can take another step because they're going to be on the field for 60 minutes as opposed to 35 or 40 minutes. They're not bad football players. I'm not saying they're bad signings, but again, I go back to the Pernell McPhee signing, and you've got almost a clone of it with Zadarius Smith. Now, the difference is you knew that McPhee had those damaged knees, and Smith is healthy as near as we can tell. But he's had every opportunity to take over from a 34, 35, 36-year-old Terrell Suggs, and he couldn't do it. He was still playing behind him, and so it'll be interesting to see how good. I think Preston Smith is the better of the two players, the two Smiths they signed in free agency, but there's no question Zadarius Smith is the pass rush specialist. Now, what you got to realize, the Packers were actually 7th in the NFL in quarterback sack percentage last year. So it's not like they weren't getting to the quarterback, but they weren't creating consistent pressure, and they weren't stout up the middle. Preston Smith is a really good all-around linebacker, so he will be a nice addition to that defense, even if he doesn't give them much pass rush. I think in his best season, he's had 4 sacks. But Zadarius Smith, if he doesn't go in there and become a double-digit sack guy, then that's going to be viewed as a mistake in that signing. And I don't know what they have the base of projection of Zadarius Smith getting double-digit sacks on.
Dan Davis on the line, Hub Arkush. Follow him at Hub_Arkush. Make sure you check him out Thursday on 670 The Score from 6 to 10 p.m.
Yes.
Getting all your draft info for real football fans. Even though the Bears don't have draft picks, you still want to listen to this. All right, like this used to be my Thanksgiving Hub. Like, batter the hatches. Don't call me. I'm doing all draft. This is all I need. So definitely great having you. I want to ask you a quick draft question and then a Mitch Trubisky question. Last year, you joined us, and you were headlong a Baker Mayfield's guy. You said Baker's the guy. Yeah. I said that I kind of like Josh Allen. Of course, you're right. You're Hub Arkush, even though Josh Allen doesn't stink. He's just Vince Young with a stronger arm. But looking at this draft, I'm usually like a 5'10" quarterback. I'm not here for it. Even if he's great, he wouldn't be on my team. What quarterback would you pick and why in this upcoming draft?
Well, you got to take a step back on the whole Kyler Murray thing, because if it's not the Arizona Cardinals, then we don't know, what happens with Kyler Murray. And I mean, I think it's the most ridiculous thing. I've been doing this for 42 years, and the idea that Kyler Murray would be the number 1 overall pick in any season is bizarre to me. But that a team that traded a 3rd and 5th round pick to move from 15 to 10 last year and took a quarterback and only gave him 14 games on an awful team with a coach that they fired is now going to reboot and just write that guy off and invest the number 1 overall pick in Kyler Murray. The whole thing is crazy. And you know what's crazier than that? The fact that they hired Cliff Kingsbury as their head coach.
Yes. Yeah.
I mean, this is a guy who went 30-40 in 5 seasons at Texas Tech and couldn't win with Patrick Mahomes, playing pretty much kind of tier 2, Power 5, but tier 2 football. And so I don't get it. I don't know why he is their choice as head coach. I'll give him the benefit of the doubt. Maybe they think they've got the next Sean McVay, although he's, 8-9 years older than McVay was when he got the job. But even if they do, you don't give him control of the personnel department. Steve Kine's job is on the line. He already had a one-and-done coach last year. And what I'm hearing is going on down there is that Kingsbury and ownership love the idea of Kyler Murray. Ownership loves the marketing aspect of it, thinks it'll sell some tickets, which is a problem when you go 3-13. But Steve Keim and Terry McDonough, his personnel guy, I'm hearing they're not happy about this, and I'm not at all convinced yet that they're going to take Murray. But I just think it's bizarre that you would talk about him as the number 1 overall pick. 1 season as the starter at Oklahoma, it doesn't make sense to me. He's a unique athlete. He's an interesting player. I could certainly see him in the first half of the 2nd round as kind of a guy you you create special packages for, he may turn out to be a great quarterback in the NFL. I'm certainly not. I'm not anti Kyler Murray, but you were just talking about how much you love the draft. Well, we've been studying this for a long time. We know what goes into this.
Yeah.
And he brings none of the assets that you're looking for in a guy that you want to draft.
I wouldn't do it.
It's bizarro world.
And so the answer to your question is I think Dwayne Haskins is the best of the 4 prospects. What's happening with him, I'm told, is that some of the teams that he's had private meetings with, he's not doing as well on the whiteboard as they would like. Not that can't be taught, but you got to remember he's a third-year sophomore. He only started 1 season, just like Kyler Murray. Apparently Murray does better when they put him on the whiteboard. But Haskins has also somehow gotten this rap of being immobile and a pocket passer. That's not true. Watch the tape. I mean, he's not going to be running down the field, but he moves very well and creates in the pocket and extends plays. And at times, that's when he was the most dangerous. I think that if you were going strictly on the tangibles, on the measurables, the guy with the best tools is Drew Lock. But what worries me about him is that in 3 years, starting at Missouri, I think his best year, his completion percentage was barely 60%, and that was this year. And that's really the first thing you're looking at in the NFL these days is accuracy and the ability to read and complete passes. And then you get to Daniel Jones. He's kind of an unknown to me. He's just, you turn on the tape and it's not bad. It's good sometimes, but to me, there's just nothing real exciting about him. I'll tell you, the other kid I love is the kid from Buffalo. I'm fascinated by him. Tyree Jackson is, I want to say 6'7.5", 260, and ran a 4.57 40. And he's definitely got the biggest arm in this group. Now he's coming from Buffalo. He's got a long way to go. But I think some team is going to get him in the 4th to the 6th round, and a couple of years from now, they may have a pretty special quarterback.
Hubby, I want to go back a little bit, and you was kind of breaking down how you think with Kyler Murray. Yeah, Kyler Murray is just kind of crazy what's going on. But explain to us and our listeners right now. So what does that mean about the current state of the NFL?
Well, I don't know that it means anything about the state of the NFL because the Arizona Cardinals appear to be a bit of and they're just an outlier right now. I mean, they were in the Super Bowl a few years back. They were a playoff team. So I'm not saying they're incompetent, but I don't get what's going on there. You have to remember, again, this is a team that went all in last year on Josh Rosen, hired Steve Wilk, and fired the head coach after 1 season. And now they're talking about moving the quarterback after 1 season. That's not the way you do business in the NFL. And so I think they have fallen into a rut of kind of incompetence at the moment, but I don't know that that's a permanent condition. So when you say, what does it say? And actually this gets back to what I was saying when you first asked me about Kyler Murray. I don't know what it says about the NFL because I don't know what happens to him if the Cardinals don't take him at number 1. Yeah. I keep hearing that the Bucs really like him and that they might do it at number 5, but the Jason Light, who's the general manager down there, is another guy who's 2 breaths away from getting fired after what he's done the last 4, 5, 6 years. And if he goes by the Bucs, I just I don't know that he goes in the top 15 this is what we have to wait and see. I think what it does say about the NFL is it's become very much a copycat league, and so I think people who are not knowledgeable, to be honest with you, are just assuming that there's not that much difference between Cliff Kingsbury's air raid offense and Andy Reid / Doug Peterson / Matt Nagy's RPO offense. There's a world of difference, and Kyler Murray would not necessarily be a great fit in Matt Nagy's offense, but for what Cliff Kingsbury wants to do, he's an interesting fit. And so what's happened is it's kind of a period of instant gratification. Everybody wants the next Sean McVay. Everybody wants the next explosive offense. That's what the Cardinals are going for here. It looks to me like it's going to be a big mistake if they do it, but I could be dead wrong. At the end of the day, there in the history of the NFL has been one quarterback under 6 feet to be I shouldn't say the history, in the modern era of the NFL, and that's Russell Wilson. And people want to make Murray the next Russell Wilson. A, they're not the same stylistically, but B, even if he is the next, he better be the next Russell Wilson because you're talking about the number 1 overall pick. Russell Wilson was a 3rd-round draft choice. Yep. And that's the part I cannot wrap my arms around. But here's what I know almost for sure, is they could make a deal with the Raiders at 4, who have multiple first-round picks. They might even be able to make a deal with the Giants or with the Packers, who might come up and take a Quinnen Williams or a Nick Bosa. Minimally, they could trade down to 4 or 6 or maybe even 12, get a couple extra high picks, and still get Kyler Murray. And so that's the part that really kind of freaks me out, is that to use the number 1 overall pick, I don't think there's any justification for that.
Dan Davis on the line, the great Hub Arkush. Hub, we really appreciate the amount of time you've given us. One quick question and then a long one. The quick question 1, where would Josh Rosen rate to you in this draft? And then you hear everything with Mitchell Trubisky, and I've heard you say it, and it's something that I really believe. If he just takes a step this year, and even if the defense slightly slides back, they should be a better team than they were last year, even if the schedule doesn't necessarily reap that out. What have you heard about Mitch and the receivers getting together in the offseason? I know OTAs haven't really taken place, but does it seem like the next step is going to take place with Mitch Trubisky?
Well, first of all, as far as Josh Rosen, it's a great question, because the only reason that he dropped to 4 of the top 4 quarterbacks last year were all the concerns and question marks about his attitude, his character, his personality. As far as the physical traits, he was an equal type prospect to Baker Mayfield and Sam Darnold and Josh Allen. Now, Darnold and Mayfield are both looking like they could become franchise type quarterbacks. So as I look at Rosen and look at just the physical evaluation, the production in college, he'd be the number 1 quarterback this year. But then you got to start to plug in those questions about attitude and character, and I don't know how much that would downgrade him. I can't imagine, based on what we knew about Rosen prior to the draft last year and what we know about Murray now, if they were both going into this draft, I can say with some certainty that Rosen would be taken ahead of Murray. And so there's the irony in that the Cardinals are getting ready to dump him and practically give him away to take Murray. As far as Mitch, I'm just really impressed. I love his work ethic. I love his competitiveness. I love his leadership skills. I love his attitude towards the game. And I really like some of the things that we've now seen him do physically in 26 games, 26 starts. I thought that maybe, it's funny because I made this comment, I forget who I was on the air with, and they corrected me, and I had to kind of push back. I said that I thought he might have played his best game in his last game against Philadelphia, and the host jumped on me and said, he was awful in the first half. I said, that's not the point. Look at what he did in the second half. It was the playoffs. He bounced back. Yeah. He finished with 343 yards passing, and he got the ball back with 56 seconds, and if they had a kicker, he would have had one of the historic Bears comeback drives, So I think he was continuing. I think he hit a slow part after the shoulder injury. Had a couple games where I don't know if they were kind of keeping him under wraps or if he was struggling to get back in rhythm. But with what he did over the course of the season, the body of work, and particularly that playoff game, and knowing that he has the arm and he has the athletic ability and he seems to have all the mental capacity, I think he can take another big step. And if he does, he moves into the level of playoff winning quarterback. I hesitate to use the word elite because I don't know what that is anymore, if it's based on being a runner and a passer or just throwing for 5,000 yards. We'll see. But I think what matters is a guy who can win playoff games and win a Super Bowl. And if he takes the next step that he appears to have the tools to take, I think he can be that guy.
Hub, you mentioned the Bears having a bad kicker, and it's a kicker up in San Francisco who doesn't want to go back there. Well, Mr. Robbie Gould, do you think the Bears should reach out to try to figure some kind of way to get him back to Chicago?
Well, I don't think the Bears need to reach out. I think what Robbie's trying to do right now is leverage the 49ers. And what everybody needs to understand about that, we talked about this a little bit earlier today on The Score, Robbie does want to be back in Chicago, but he also wants to be out of San Francisco, even if it's not back in Chicago. That has turned out to be a bad situation out there, and so what he's asked for is a trade closer to home. He did not specify Chicago. I think Chicago would be his first choice, but don't forget the Vikings have had almost as many place kicker issues as the Bears have in recent years, and obviously Minneapolis is a lot closer to Chicago than San Francisco is. Maybe Cincinnati or Cleveland. You've got Vinatieri Terry set in Indianapolis. You got Mason Crosby set up in Green Bay. So I think his first choice would be to be a Bear. I don't know how Ryan Pace feels about that. We've talked about this a lot. I can tell you from multiple sources that it was the special teams coach at the time, Jeff Rogers, who kind of led the charge to move on from Robbie, and he convinced John Fox, and together they were the ones who wanted it to happen. I don't know if they had to convince Ryan Pace or if Ryan agreed, but I know this wasn't Ryan Pace decided it was time to get rid of Robbie Gould. There was some forces working against Robbie. I think what's more important is that if you want to win, you have to acknowledge that from the day they released him, Robbie has been the best kicker in the NFL. He is 82 of 85 on field goals. He is currently at this stage of his career the number one all-time kicker in NFL history in accuracy outside the 50, and he's the number 2 all-time leader in accuracy, period. And so, and don't forget that the really good kickers, they all kick into their early mid-40s, and he's only 36. And so now, you've got a tight salary cap situation, but the only way this can happen, they can't trade him with the franchise tag. So if the 49ers were going to trade or release him, they'd have to rescind the franchise tag. So, if it was a trade for a couple 7th-round picks or I don't think I'd want to pay too much more than that, then you could work out a deal where he'd cost more than the Bears probably want to spend on a kicker right now. But just think about, what it would do. And I don't think you make personnel decisions based on public relations, but when you think about what it would do in that locker room, how the guys on this team who were here when he was here would feel about it, how everybody on that roster, knowing how they lost their last game, would feel about getting the best kicker in the NFL right now, I think it's something that Ryan Pace should certainly strongly consider.
Hub, thank you so much for hopping on with us and really giving us this much time. We really appreciate it.
You're the best.
Guys, time is easy. You didn't ask for money, so we're okay.
All right, Hub, thank you so much for hopping on.
Everybody check him out Thursday night on 670 The Score, 6 p.m. to 10 p.m. And also friend of the show, check out Author with Julie. Is that Saturday, Hub, the Author's
No, that's actually going to be Thursday night right after us. It'll be myself and Dan Pompei and Patrick Manley and Greg Gabriel from 6 to 10.
Oh, nice.
And then we'll hand it off to Julie and Arthur from 10 to 12. And then, for any of your listeners who've never been to a Bears draft party, we will be broadcasting live from Soldier Field at the Bears draft party Saturday from 10 in the morning till 3 in the afternoon. I will be with my former Bears broadcast partners, Jeff Joniak and Tom Thayer, as well as David Haw and Dan Pompei. So Score, after they're done with listening to you guys, Score will be a good place to go to get all your best draft coverage.
Thanks,
there you go. Thanks, Hub.
Thank you for having me, guys. I appreciate it. Take care.
You're great.
And that was Hub Arkush, executive editor of Pro Football Weekly, also right here on 670 The Score. Make sure you follow Hub on Twitter at Hub_Arkush.
We got a ton of draft stuff to get into, so we definitely have to. I'm chopping at the bit to talk a little draft stuff and figure out what's going on.
Yeah, let's go. Let's go.
All right, D and Davis will be right back on the side of this break giving you the NFL breakdown.
Hey, this is Rich Campbell from the Chicago Tribune, and you're listening to The D and Davis Show.
With the second pick in the 2018 NFL Draft, the New York Giants select Saquon Barkley, running back, Penn State.
D and Davis right here. Hey, thank you so much for Hub Arkush hopping on with us, breaking down the draft. Mostly Bears on what he's going to do or what they probably going to do. But we're going to get into some draft talk right now. This is the time when my partner, my co-host with the most is like just in his sports bunker. And it's like, draft. I mean, he's eating up right now. So I'm just going to, I'm going to play the wing man right here. I'm going to dish out, I'm going to hop in and play point guard, hop in, but I'm going to let my man score right here. So I'm going to kind of like ask him a question because I've always loved to learn about the draft and the guys coming up from Ken.
I appreciate that, brother.
So, yeah. So here's the first question to you. Mm-hmm. I know we kind of talked about this with Hub talking about Kyler Murray, but beyond that, who's a guy right now, because you watched the combine? I don't know if you did it like as much this year, but
I actually didn't.
But who is a guy that you are itching to see, where they go and how they perform in the NFL?
You know, that'll probably, outside of the quarterback, so Kyler Murray and definitely Dwayne Haskins, I want to know that. But to a certain degree for me, that's not as appealing or titillating. I want to know where these defensive linemen differ, because you look at the fact that Josh Allen, not Josh Allen, you have Quinnion Williams from Alabama, and people give him the comment. We know he's definitely not going to be Donald, but still, like, people are looking at what that player does and they want something similar to that. And all we heard before last year was the fact that Ed Oliver was going to be the number 1 pick in the draft, or i.e. Nick Bosa, and then there's a couple of guys that went to schools that necessarily you didn't see as much. You got the kid Brian Burns, tall cat out of Florida State. This definitely looks good. You got all the Clemson down linemen from Christian Wilkinson and from Cillian Farrell. Like, there's so many guys defensively, and we know, even speaking about, look, on our thread, we were talking about Clark with Seattle today.
Yeah, they got traded. Yeah.
And we're talking about him getting traded, but the reason that Seattle did it was they only had 4 draft picks, and their general manager, outside offensive lineman, he hit. Easily.
Yeah, he did. Yeah.
All right, and you're giving him a chance. That we look at Clark's contract, the same thing that the Raiders were up against last year. I already have a quarterback signed to a supreme deal. Do I want to give Khalil Mack this money? Now, the problem was they gave the money to the wrong person. They should have given it to Khalil Mack.
Okay. Yeah, exactly.
But so it's in a defensive lineman draft, and it's funny with the Bears. This was the draft that I was looking forward to, because at the time that we talked draft last year, Khalil Mack wasn't here.
Yeah, right.
So this was a draft. You're like, man, when these guys come out next year, those are the guys you're looking for. But for me, really, it's these down linemen, especially from ones from schools that I necessarily you didn't see every weekend. But then the guys that I named that I'm really like, dude, I want to see who's going to be, for instance, what Khalil Mack was, and what when Khalil Mack came out, who were some of the guys that came out?
Aaron Donald was that year.
Was he? Aaron Donald. Yeah. And look, you don't lose with either one of those.
Did Mac go before Donald? He did, right?
Yeah.
I think Mac went 4 and Donald went like 10.
And Mac comes out of
right.
Buffalo. They got a small school.
Yeah.
And you're doing
that's the good
that.
thing about the NFL, though. I mean, you could even look back, going back to like the 70s and the 80s, a lot of those guys coming out of HBCUs.
Yeah. Great scouting.
Yeah, great scouting. I mean,
Richard Dent.
There you go. Yeah, I mean, a lot
Jerry
of these
Rice,
players,
Walter Payton.
Yeah, Mississippi State.
Lewis Tillman.
D, to answer your question, what I'm looking for, specifically in that first round, I want to see the Giants and the Broncos. Both of them quarterback hungry, but
I've been hearing
are there quarterbacks there for them to take?
Right, I've been hearing the Giants are kind of like they might not want to take Haskins.
Gettleman is saying he's itching to get a pass rusher, was one report, but of course it's lying season, so who knows what's going on.
But they have 6 and 17? Is that what their next pick is?
The Giants?
Yeah, they have 2 picks in the first round.
The Giants have number 6, and I'm trying to scroll down, but this computer's taking a little bit longer than I'd like it to. And they have, oh wow, this computer is like super slow, and it just froze on me, so I don't know.
Yeah, they definitely have.
They have 17. You're right.
Yeah,
okay,
they have 6 and 17. So this is the thing.
Why wouldn't you want to take? Listen,
but see, he may not believe in the one. This is the question.
Do you believe in Eli?
With Gettleman? This is the question. Is he sending up smoke screen?
What about Eli?
But see,
that's the biggest question.
I think Gettleman, from paying attention and everything you see on the NFL Network, particularly, that may as well be the Giants station. The question is are they trying to put a cloud and cast doubt on Haskins because they don't want someone to jump ahead of them? Mm-hmm. Or is it true that he doesn't see Haskins to be the quarterback of the future? You've heard the rumors about people think he's more about his brand. You've heard that he's in better shape now than he was at the combine. The only knock on that is people are still talking about his playing weight when he was at school. And what he'll do when he gets to check, basically, is what they're saying. You heard Hub Arkush tell us about his whiteboard work. And I mean, to tell you that that's somewhat shocking, even though his receivers were open all day long in some of those games. But for someone who was a stationary quarterback for the most part, not to have good whiteboard work, I would have thought his whiteboard work was a little bit better than what necessarily I expected. But this is the thing. Are they looking at a chance that perhaps somebody like Drew Lock they can get? Like, do they think Haskins is the guy? Do they think Drew Lock is the guy? Physically, Drew Lock is one of the better guys in this draft. The problem is, and Hub said it, completions. Look, Drew Lock is not accurate. and that
Right away, that should be a
inaccuracy
no.
trends right back to the NFL, where guys that are inaccurate in college don't become guys that can thread a needle with the football when they hit the pros, because the defenses are way better and the cornerbacks are way faster, and so are the safeties, let alone the damn linebackers. So when it comes to them, and I'll say this, the team that I'm looking for when you say that, funny, ironically, I'm looking to see what the Raiders do. Like, I just want to know what Mike Mayock.
Whole damn draft.
And I like what they do in the first round. Especially, it'll be interesting to see if they trade away some of these picks that they have now in this year's draft and next year's draft to go after some player, and then it'll be if that player hits. And I think most of us like the organization, the Raiders. My father was a Raiders fan. I think you're a Raiders fan.
Yeah.
So I always, it's something in your heart that kind of cheers for the Raiders, even though you can hate them too. But I would hate to root against this player because is Gruden just messing everything up? Like so my team that I really want to see in the first round, because I don't know what the Giants are doing, but it's probably the Raiders. Another team that I clearly don't know what the hell they're doing.
The Raiders are drafting number 4, number 24. They only got 2 first-round picks.
Yeah, but how many second?
Yeah. And then the second round, they got pick number 35, and I think that's it. So it's like 2 1s and 1 in the 2.
Then they got picks next year, too.
They got picks next year.
So they can use all that to move all over this draft.
D and Davis Show recording right here at 670 The Score, breaking down a little NFL draft upcoming this weekend. Listen, I still want to ask you this about the Giants and Eli, though. What?
I don't think he's that stupid.
Well, there was a thing where
I didn't ask a question, but I like where it's going.
Haskins and Eli had lunch together, which is not necessarily a normal thing for teams to do. Usually teams meet with the prospect and then like bring in the quarterback.
Kind of like passing of the torch.
But they
almost,
had alone together lunch, if that means anything.
It makes the most sense. Sometimes we look at this as, saying kind of like fans or the Uber fans and looking at it. And sometimes teams don't do what you think they're just going to do. It's like, man, that makes the most sense, and they kind of throw you a curveball. That makes the most sense. I don't think I'm with Hub. I don't think anybody else below probably the Cardinals and the way their organization is going right now, nobody else probably would have drafted Kyler Murray in the first round. I don't think you're looking at the teams, I think the Giants will be the number 1 team to probably need a quarterback outside the Cardinals.
The Giants wouldn't touch Kyler Murray.
That's my point.
I don't know if the Raiders wouldn't, though.
But they're not in the discussion because they're not that high up.
They're number 3.
Oh, the Raiders are number 4. See,
but I mean that's still high up.
No. I thought you said Rams. I'm sorry, you said Raiders.
No, yeah.
But yeah, maybe because we don't know what Chucky's going to do.
I don't know what Chucky's going to do.
But looking at that though, it kind of he's still in a sense kind of a football purist. I don't know if he will go that route. It's like, man, I'm gonna take a 5'10" dude. But looking at the Giants, it makes the most sense.
As far as them taking Haskins or Drew Lock?
As far as taking Haskins.
Yeah, but this is the thing.
That makes the most sense.
This is the thing. You have to ask, do you believe in those quarterbacks?
Right.
Because you gave up Olivier Vernon. Your pass rush, it wasn't great last year. It's trash now.
It's trash.
And this is the draft. If you're going to get a defensive line or rush in, a guy, look, even if he's a tackle, but a guy can put pressure on the quarterback right in front of his face. So are you going to sit there when you can get your defensive guy first and come back and get your quarterback? Because this is the thing, too. I'll say this much. And I don't – even going to last year's draft with the Giants and taking Saquon Barkley, I wouldn't have done it, but I see why. I mean, to me, I don't even – look, Saquon Barkley could be physically the greatest running back in the league for the next 3 to 4 years. You still may not win nothing because he's just a running back.
You already said that you probably draft. I mean, trade.
I would. He's going to benefit. Now, this is the thing why they would perhaps hold on to him. If they're going to get a quarterback, one of the best things you can do with a quarterback is a great tight end and a great running back. Exactly.
Hand the ball off.
To one is used to take pressure off with the run game, but also it's going to
exploit that middle.
But it's also going to do wonders in the play action pass game if you got a running back already that they already have to pay attention to in the backfield. So I don't know last year if I would have done it because let's be honest, in last year's draft, real quick. Baker Mayfield's the only guy right now, and it's still, I'm not the hugest Baker Mayfield fan, but still, that he seems like he's a winner. He's the only quarterback in last year's draft that, hands down, we know that he's a winner right now. That he can quote unquote be even if we say look, the Browns have the number 1 draft pick. So after he's gone, if Gettleman let's say he had Baker Mayfield rated number 1, hoping the Browns perhaps wouldn't take that pick and we would have a chance to get him and he would be the guy to replace Eli.
Right.
If you don't have high grades on the rest of those quarterbacks, and especially the amount of money you have to pay a quarterback and how important he is to your team, there's no reason to draft a Kristen Ponder or Blaine Gabbert when you don't have to. Like, just because they're guys that have a first round rating during this draft. You don't. And it goes into this draft too. Where does Gettleman have these quarterbacks ranked? And one, if he has Haskins, listen, if he has Haskins up high, he's doing a wonderful job of what he should do, and that's to cast doubt on Haskins. So no one will say, man, I want to get Haskins, but I got to get in front of the Giants. Because that's the last thing we know. And look, that's one thing we know over the last, we only have to go deep, and this can go back as far as the draft can go back. But the last 2 or 3 years, people go move up for quarterbacks, man. Like, if
they like them.
Yeah, so you can't say he may fall to us necessarily, because if he's highly ranked and a lot of people like him and they know how important quarterbacks are, people are willing to gamble on that position. So you want to make sure that guy may be there, and you don't have to give up draft capital if you don't necessarily have to.
But based on what I think your vibes are, you would go DN.
If I'm the Giants, see, this is the problem.
It's a DN heavy draft. So
I don't believe in Kyler Murray.
Okay.
Haskins, I like.
I think he might be the second best. I mean, we don't know.
But the thing is, he had 1 year of playing.
Right.
And then he's an East Coast kid. He's from the New York area. So it's not like he doesn't get New York or whatever. But that's a big market to play in. Like, one thing you can
for
hate
a rookie and for the Giants.
Both. And one thing
I'm saying. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, right.
And one thing you can hate on Eli Manning is, Eli's not this and Eli's not this. But you know what Eli is? Cool as a cucumber. In the biggest media market in the country.
And the way he got there.
Yes, and the way, and that amplifies it. Right, and so it's his demeanor benefits him there.
But the question is, it's almost kind of like an age old question now in the NFL. Do you take that DN or do you take that quarterback?
It depends on how if that quarterback is a good quarterback.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you this too.
A lot of people have those conversations though.
And I'm sure he thinks Pat Shurmur is the person. Depends on if you got a guy that you think can coach a quarterback up.
Right.
Because if I, like me, in my heart of hearts.
And do you have the players around that
Exactly. In my heart of hearts, even though you right now you're going to ride with that coach, you may know if that coach is the type of coach that can really foster and have a great relationship with a young quarterback and raise that young quarterback up or not. And then if you don't, you may look at this as, let's go defense, let's get this defense up and humming, even though that doesn't make sense, to a certain degree, because defenses' windows are shorter than a great defense window is short as far as being a great defense.
The way the NFL is. Yeah.
The way they play.
Right.
All right, like
right. It's the state of the NFL.
Yeah, great defender. Now, out of that great defense, you may still have stalwarts that stay great throughout the reigns of that defense. As far as now they're good, now they're okay, now they're great. But as far as a unit, Legion of Doom, you know what I'm saying? 85 Bears, even though they had basically the decade of the Ravens. You know what I'm saying?
The
like
Broncos.
Let's look at how that Ravens team early in Ray Lewis's career went from being dominant. They had the little dip. And then they brought in like Ed Reed, and you had Haloti Ngata, and it reinvigorated from when the other guys left. I forgot Darren Sharper, Jamie Sharper, and all those guys. So when you're looking at that, you would think quarterback is the guy, but dude, I don't like when I see this quarterback draft. No one jumps out at me as being great. Haskins should be the guy with all the tools if we're talking about his arm strength and what he does in the pocket, but people aren't giving him his props, and people want him to go with trickery. And I will say this and stand on a mountain. Hate Davis all you want. Kyler Murray can be great. I would never draft him. I would never in my life.
You wouldn't draft him in the first round? Is that what you're trying to say?
For sure. Well, listen.
You say you'd never draft him. If it was a third round, third round, maybe.
If you got third round, even second round.
Russell Wilson kind of spot.
Listen, even second round, I don't know. Because to me, to me, he's three-coin with an arm.
Damn, he ain't that small.
I'm not saying that. I'm just saying he's to me, I think worst case scenario, he's going to be trickeration. And I'm not drafting trickeration in the first or second round. That's what I'm trying to get to. Like, if he fails, there still will be a space for him.
He looked like a trickeration in Oklahoma?
No, but it was college, and it was the big.
Well, that's what they got to go off, though.
But it was the Big 12.
That's what they have to go off.
All they do is play offense.
But my point is,
I'm going off his height.
But what I'm trying to say is, you're going off of
Measurables.
Measurables. Yeah, I get that.
No, measurables.
Measurables.
You said you always do this to me.
Measurables.
You always do. When you say it and then I try to correct you, then I mess up doing it. You saying it right now.
No, but I mean that's what they have to go off of. I mean it is what it is. Is that the tape?
But this is the thing. Real quick,
you have to go off of what you're seeing, and if you believe in that, they obviously don't think it's going to be a trickeration kind of a quarterback.
Yes.
Arizona don't think that.
Cliff Kingsbury. Arizona. What are they? Are they the Bidwells? Which one is the Cardinals? The Bidwells are the what are they? The Buccaneers owners.
That's Glaziers. Glaziers. It might be the Bidwells.
Maybe the Bidwells.
Yeah. It might be them.
But they're terrible ownership. As Hub said, they made it one time. They got out their weight.
It is the Bidwells.
Yeah. They're terrible ownership. Listen, only this team would allow a general manager to scrap everything after last year. Even I'll say this much. I think
shocked
it's smart.
by all this.
As far as the general manager goes, I think it's smart because he's giving him there. If this kind of works for a couple years, he just opened his window wide back up again, where it's like, dude, one mistake, your ass is out of here. You know what I'm saying? Like for him, because all you do is live to play another day. If they do, and chances are this year they're going to do well because no one has seen it, right?
Yeah, but you can stink.
This is the thing, though. What happens when the tape gets out? And you start to know, he only likes to draw. I'm just saying, but dog, that height will be a fact. He only likes to throw from here. He's best using, this is how we're going to set up. And due to his height, like there's some things that you can work against. I was having a discussion with somebody, a partner of mine's corny, and I was telling them about the White Sox as far as the White Sox are better off than what you think. A lot of the White Sox fans don't pay attention to it. And I'm talking about when you look at Mikata and Tim Anderson, and Mikata looking like a guy that was a bust.
Yeah.
And looking at what he's doing, and I said, the real question, he's like, well, when will you know if it's for real? I said, if he dips and he has to readjust when the pitchers know what he likes, that's when you know. The same applies to Kyler Murray. When they know, Cliff Kingsbury, this is what you like to do in the pros. I'm going to show you now what we like to do up here.
But that's assuming that you don't think they're going to be able to adjust.
No, I do. I think that's part of the reason why I wouldn't draft him because
you don't think he's
his
going to be able to
limitations. Like they're going to have to play a certain way for his limitations. I know you would always say this. We found out 3 weeks ago to a month. The shorter quarterbacks have the least deflections in NFL. But of course, if you're taller, you're not thinking as many people are going to be able to get their hands up. A short guy already knows everybody named mama on the field, even coaches may come smacking the ball like, damn, little man. So he's going to be sure when he lets it go, right? I'm sure also in the back of his mind, he's even more thinking about deflections, interceptions due to his height and had to learn trying to get over that or whatever. But looking at Kyler Murray, I think when the NFL adjusts, it'll be interesting to see if his height and where he has to be proficient in Cliff Kingsbury offense starts to affect what they can do because teams are going to sit there and scheme for it. And if due to his height they can't do something else, and I could be wrong here, it just proves the point of why I wouldn't even play like that.
Well, it comes down to the point of the coach got to coach and the players got to play.
Facts, but he should be 5'10" playing quarterback.
I want to go back to something you said, Ken, about the Giants, how they might have to go for a pass rusher because they lost Olivier Vernon. Does that really compound the mistake of getting Saquon Barkley? Because you had a quarterback, you had Bradley Chubb there, and now you didn't get either, and you come into this year and you need both, and you probably have to take, like you said, a pass rusher at 6 and hope that your quarterback is going to be there later on.
You can always try to draft up, though. Right. You can try to move up.
I mean, dude, I think the value of running backs, and we had this debate, I think it's high. The problem is they don't usually last that long, especially giving you that elite effort. I mean, it's not even a knock on them, but by the time a guy gets into his 6th year, like, dude, you
gotta be a freak of nature.
You're talking like 2 contracts. That's what you're probably getting.
And listen, how many people are Adrian Peterson? Let's just get to that point.
It's only about 1.
Yeah, I mean, like we don't see, and I know because as running back committee, we don't see who's Walter Payton and the guys that can rush forever as much, Emmitt Smith, so on and so forth. But also, man, these guys are bigger and faster, and it's just, if you're going to your point, Edge, real quick, and what you just said made a lot of sense. If you're looking at the fact, and Barkley may be better than Chubb, but man, a great defensive edge rusher could last you a decade, and he impacts the game all the time, right?
Right behind a quarterback.
Like
1-2.
Yeah, like right, exactly. It's who passes the ball,
the literal counterbalance.
Yes, exactly.
Most important position.
Yep. So look, I think clearly Saquon Barkley was the best player in that draft if we're going off of his measurables.
Oh,
Now, it may depend on if Baker Mayfield is great, because then clearly he's a quarterback and what he brings to the team or whatever. But clearly Saquon Barkley's number one. But when you need stuff, can you take perhaps the best running back in a generation? Because, again, let's look. How many greatest running backs of a generation won rings? Adrian Peterson didn't. Walter did, but he was older. Emmett did, and Emmett was part of the engine that got it done. But how many Emmitt Smiths are out there? Barry Sanders didn't do it. Like, how many, as far as we're sitting here.
Maybe next year would be better, but he finally got on his last run.
He got on his, good point, his last run. Look, one of the best running backs was with the Pittsburgh Steelers, had a quarterback and a receiver, and they never got it done in Le'Veon Bell with the Steelers, right?
Yeah.
Like, look.
The Rams arguably would have won if they had Todd Gurley.
I was just going to say that.
He was healthy.
And so it's just one of those things where it's like with that position, and I hate to say that. I'm not a guy that's like, you don't draft him in the first round. No, but when you're in the top 10, and again.
You got a ton of holes on your roster.
A ton of holes. Like, he warrants
So they
it.
have to make do with what they have. They already did it. He's already there. That goes back to my point. If you're still talking about the Giants, they need a quarterback. They do.
And that's why I'm looking at
They do.
Gettleman. He just seems so old school. Like, it just doesn't seem like he's going to take a quarterback in the top 10.
Look, last team he put together, going along with what you're saying, is an old school team, and that's the Panthers.
Yeah.
And at least he went with I don't know if he drafted.
Julian Peppers?
No. If he drafted
Cam the Man.
Yeah, if he drafted Cam or not.
Oh, okay.
Because that's an outlier as far as that type of quarterback or whatever. But it was a traditional team, a team that was strong up the middle, has a great linebacker, some good ends on the side, a quarterback, and they rushed the hell out of the ball.
Rushed the ball,
right? So to your point about him being an old school type of general manager, it'll be interesting. What you got?
In the 2011 season, Marty Herney was the general manager of the Carolina Panthers.
Okay. So he drafted Cam. See, he wouldn't even draft Cam.
All right, so
get your running ass about it.
Ken, you brought up the Raiders as a team that you kind of interested to see what they're going to do. Is any other teams out there you kind of interested to see?
Really quick on the Raiders, I wanted to get your guys' opinion on the scouts being sent home. Earlier today on Mully and Haw, I was listening to Mike Florio, and he thought that the theory around them sending all their scouts home is that John Gruden is probably that one type of person in the office that has to go into everybody's office, knock on the door, sit down with his cup of coffee, and tell them, hey, do you like this move? This is what I'm thinking. And just hear it out loud, just to get people's opinion, bounce it off of
to validate what he's going to do?
Just to hear it, just to see if that sounds right. And that's why they got rid of him, because they didn't want anything leaked out, because they don't think John Gruden can maybe keep his mouth shut on the big thing that they're trying to do.
Well, I really liked him. I like this passing. I like this. I mean, I guess it's possible. That's very conspiracy. That's the NFL, though. They always think somebody's listening to them.
Maybe Mike Mayock knows what he's doing. I like Mike Mayock growing up.
I'm going to miss him.
You don't like that?
I'm going to
if
miss
he's doing
him
that?
on the NFL Network when they do the draft.
I wanted to ask Hub.
He's great.
We didn't have enough time. I wanted to ask Hub going out, like, Hub, if a stable franchise offered you a GM job, because it's similar, right? Like, I mean, like.
He did it for how many years? How many years Mike Mayock was on there?
Mike Mayock has been out.
10 years?
Yeah. No, he's been out of football since the 80s. As far as he went to Boston College, I don't know if he had a cup of soup in the NFL, but he's probably been looking at draft stuff for like 20-some years.
Wasn't he like, when they started doing the draft coverage? Wasn't he like
one of the original guys?
It was him and Mel Kiper basically.
Yeah, maybe Chucky can't keep his mouth shut.
But listen, I don't know. Ryan
That's
Asher,
something to say about the head quarterback. I mean, your head coach is like, yeah, man, y'all can't be around him because he talked too damn much.
But see, the problem is he hasn't been in a position where he was in charge of the entire franchise. Or if he did, you see what happened when he was down there in Tampa Bay. Mm-hmm. So they know that he gives hints.
Limitations.
And think about another problem is, remember this, to go along with it. Think about how many people he knows. He was doing TV. Outside of course, he knew people. He's a coach's son, is in South Bend. Clearly, he knows people.
Yeah, he did Notre Dame games for a long time.
Yeah, so he knows a lot of people. So people are, hey, John, mm-hmm. and they probably know his tells and how to read what they're saying when they're kind of sticking around and asking questions. So it's probably just good to make sure he's out of the situation in general. Because this is not the time to give up information. We know this is all lies.
No.
Or everyone's sitting there trying to send up smoke screens.
You send more lies and tell the truth right now.
Exactly.
Yeah. But as I was going to say, kind of kicking around to you all too, D and Davis Show, recording right here at 670 The Score. Make sure you follow us on Twitter at D and Davis Show. Any other teams in the draft that you're kind of interested to see what they do? I mean, real quick,
I guess it'd have to be the Jags.
They're sitting at number 7 right now.
Yeah, looking at a team that wasn't supposed to be. I mean, looking at a team that has a ton of talent. The question will be, can they become cohesive once again? And having all that talent and now having the 7th pick, it'd be interesting to see which way they're going to go. You know what I'm saying? So I would say probably the Jags, because there are a lot of these teams. I don't care for like Washington. I don't care what Washington's going to do. I don't care what the Dolphins are going to do. The Dolphins, from what we've heard before 2 or 3 months ago, were in the tour sweepstakes for next season. And now you hear, depending on if Haskins falls, maybe they're going to be a team trying to get in on him. So it still seems like
Dolphins pick at 13.
Yeah, they're up in the air to answer. You got the Lions at number 8. I guess for the Bears division in the NFC North, that's interesting because I'm not as sure of Matt Patricia so far. So I guess those would be the teams that I kind of look at. But it's just, to me, so much calamity with the Raiders that's for me is the main show.
Yeah.
I would go the Packers as the team to look out for because, as Hub pointed out, I don't really buy their free agency moves this offseason.
No?
They might be good, but you never win in the NFL if you win free agency normally. You want to be dominating in the draft, and they got Aaron Rodgers coming back on a warpath. To me, their season of them competing depends on what they do with those 2 first-round picks. Do they bring in 2 guys that help immediately and are impact starters, maybe on offense and defense or just both sides of the ball, whatever? Because if they get those talent and some of these free agency moves are at least consistent and solid.
Really? You really believe in that?
The Packers are picking number 12
Aaron Rodgers, I don't
30.
doubt him anymore. I don't doubt Aaron Rodgers because he can go superhuman. And if he has enough talent around him, he can carry.
He almost made the playoffs.
Yeah, but you know what?
Right?
I'll say this, though.
What, the year before that?
There were only 2 years in the NFC North since Aaron Rodgers has been an elite quarterback where multiple teams had great defenses. All right, so you look at now the Bar's coming back to the Vikes, and we know, even though you may say that they lost a little bit, that they still have a phenomenal defense.
They're good.
Yeah, you have the Bears with a phenomenal defense, and the Lions have a defensive-oriented guy as their head coach.
I can see them drafting a DN too.
So
along with Trey Flowers,
during major runs during Aaron Rodgers' career, because in a way he came in on the downswing of Lovey. Like Lovey, let's not forget, Lovey was him and Brett Favre up. Right?
Oh, yeah.
But the Bears team aged out basically, and the NFL was going away from the cover 2 as being your dominant package for the most part because Aaron Rodgers can carve it up like it's nothing. But also the talent that they initially had there too, because the receivers there don't seem to be able to find the soft spots in the zone like the Greg Jennings and those guys, Jermichael Finley, so on and so forth that they had, James Jones in the past. I love Aaron Rodgers, and I think he can arguably be the greatest quarterback of all time. But I think there's still limitations with what that organization has done around him. You heard Hub talk about the fact that they went out and spent a lot of money in free agency. Dog, they got Adrian Amos for King's ransom, and we got HaHa Clinton Dix for a popper's penance. All right, and and so you're talking about, and what he said, I believe the same thing. You have a situation where because they haven't been active in free agency, and this, I'm sure Packers fans like, yeah, but it goes to the discussion with should you draft this quarterback because you don't have a quarterback, even if you don't think the value is as high. Yeah, he's making moves in free agency, but are you getting true value on the free agents that you're bringing in for the money that you have? And they're in a situation where we know that there are cash limitations to a certain degree when we're talking about a team with quote unquote no real owner, everybody's owners, even though you can say that Mark Murphy is the owner of the team, the de facto owner being the guy at the head of the top. So I'm with you as far as, Aaron Rodgers is always there, but my last part is this. I don't think the teams in this division are afraid of him. Like Aaron Rodgers usually has an aura about him, and I think when you got Khalil Mack and his new Bears defense, and the fact that the Vikings and Packers have all basically had a rivalry for the last 15 years or whatever, that's been the rivalry in the NFC North because the Bears haven't stayed on top long enough to really make the Packers and them a rivalry, or even the Vikings and them a rivalry. The two teams that have been better in this division have been the Vikings and the Packers consistently. When you look at the amount of years the Bears were out of playoffs under Lovey, under Trestman, and then under Fox, Still, I revert to what the Vikes do because I think the Packers are going to be good. I think these 3 teams are going to be good. But the one that has the oh no factor as far as, because we expect it to be basically, like you're saying, a battle between the Packers or the Bears. But what if the Vikings get back to where they were in 2016?
I picked them to go to the Super Bowl last year.
And I told you was wrong.
But the whole thing is, I believe in what the Vikings have up there. The defense is there. I don't know about Kirk Cousins.
That's
obviously,
the problem, though.
That's
how
the
much
problem.
money you have in Kirk Cousins. Because what would they have done? Think about it. The only thing they really did in free agency was sign a player that had left.
Yeah, came back. Right.
Yeah.
Right,
So,
right.
but what would they have done if they didn't have all that money wrapped up in the quarterback that we're not sure about?
Very true. But you also got to look at, okay, what are the Packers going to really do and put around Aaron Rodgers? You say he's on a warpath right now. Yeah, okay, that's all well and fine, but man, does he have the weapons to go up against? Because I think they're going to probably – everybody's gunning, in my opinion, for the Bears right now. You have Mitch Trubisky. He's coming up. You have the defense right there. Everybody's probably think he's going to take another step forward. That's why I said the Lions. Yeah, they're probably going to try to get a DN because you got this young guy back here running around. All right, we definitely got to get somebody to keep him in tune.
What if?
So, I don't know. We'll see.
What if he gets injured? What if this is the beginning of Aaron Rodgers starting to get
It could be.
injured a lot?
It could be.
I mean, Mitch could tear his ACL, and we could be having the worst year of our lives.
True, but he's a young guy.
True.
And we'd be like, you know what, he may be straight.
He'll come back.
But Aaron's been out the past couple of seasons. He's been having these long
Let me ask you guys
stints of
this, though, with the
injuries.
Packers. What if they did something to go along with your point, Ken, of the defenses in the division? They got those 2 first-round picks. What if you package them, go up and get a stud pass rusher in the top 10, get a safety in the second round?
It's possible.
But will you
get
get
some good linebackers? You got Mike Daniels.
I think they're going to use the value, though.
But
I'm with you.
But let me ask you, if they did do that, would you start feeling differently about the Packers being a potential threat?
I would have to see how those guys play. Because, I mean, think about this real quick.
Let's say Josh Allen.
But wait, let's just say this. Under Ted Thompson, they built through the draft. They didn't necessarily go through free agency because they kept signing their players. They've tried to do the same thing. They just haven't hit on the players. So what? And also, Gutekunst, he's been there since 2012. He was the college personnel guy in 2012 to 2015 before he moved up, got a promotion, and then last year he became the general manager. So this isn't like a new general manager that hasn't been going along with the philosophies that have been there. This is a guy that's taken part in the mess ups. So we can't absolve him. I say this
That's a good point.
with Kenny Williams and Rick Hahn. People are like, well, Rick Hahn was there. Right, so I can't just say none of that's on Rick. He had to be the guy telling Kenny, I think this guy's good. Now, Kenny may have been a pro, but sometimes I'm sure he went along with Rick Hahn. With Gutekunst, the same thing. He's been there as they've missed out, and he was the college guy. Now, that was 2012, but still, how many guys have they kept? They didn't keep Ha-Ha Clinton-Dix, and he was there when they drafted Ha-Ha Clinton-Dix as a college guy then. So I'm just not sure as far as those guys scouting-wise with the Packers like I used to be. So I don't know if they'll hit on both of those picks. So I can't say that'll change how I feel about their season, the outlook of their season.
Gutekunst probably was making a lot of those picks because Ted Thompson was probably falling asleep.
Yeah, right.
I'm looking at them as probably, at least in Green Bay, to try to see exactly, hey, what do they do and what do they draft to try to make Aaron Rodgers a little bit more happier? We'll see. All right, you like that draft talk? Make sure you go to weareregalradio.com because they got crazy draft coverage coming up. Ryan Bukoveski's doing his thing. Kyle Means. Hey, make sure you go to weareregalradio.com for your 2019 NFL draft coverage. Everything right there for you. But coming up next, speaking of Ryan Bukoveski, we're going to go for Up for Grabs with that brother. All right? D&. Davis Show.
Yo, what up? It's your man Jay Illa, official Chicago Bears DJ, and you are listening to the D&. Davis Show. Turn it up.
D& Davis Show, we are back. Time for some Up for Grabs with one Mr. Ryan Bukoveski. He gave us some heated questions that we can kind of go back and forth and have a little fun with. So, Ryan, what's question number 1?
Clock is off. Portland has a timeout. Lillard, a chance to send the Thunder home. Lillard, long-range three, and it's good! At the buzzer! Damian Lillard! Are you kidding me? Dagger! Oh my goodness! Look at that shot! To put them out, he went for 50 points. That was 47, 48, 9, and 50 points on that one. That's amazing. Oh, 5 years ago, Lillard hit a three against your Rockets. Yes. To win a first-round series. Damian Lillard for 50 points Good night. Oklahoma City. Season over.
Well, guys, I've got a nice little mix for you, hopefully. Hopefully y'all are enjoying these questions. And we're going to start off with the NBA playoffs and a little hypothetical world. So if you will, follow me here on this road. The first round of the NBA playoffs is quickly coming to a close. Milwaukee will take on Boston, and it is likely Philadelphia and Toronto will face off in the East semis. Over on the West bracket, it is likely Houston will play Golden State, with the Denver and San Antonio series too close to call, but the winner will likely play Portland at the moment. Assuming the Bucks and Celtics, Raptors, 76ers, and the Rockets Warriors series will happen, if you can only pick one series to watch of those three and none of the others, which series would you focus on?
Wait, you saying the series that are in the second round?
Yep.
Yeah.
Come on, stop.
These are pretty good series, kid.
It's Rockets Golden State. It's not even a question.
I differ. But go ahead, say why you think that.
Because, well, see, the thing is, we're going off of, or for me, let me say for me, I'm going off of who cannot beat the champion. I guess it'll be interesting to see what takes place with Boston, and since Boston has kind of turned it back up a little bit, it'll be interesting to see necessarily how that goes. But still, if Houston can beat Golden State, because if not, chances are no one's going to stop them from three-peating. So for me, it's Houston, Golden State. And if some people are saying this Houston team is better than last year's, I don't necessarily believe that. And we know for the most part that last year's team was going to beat Golden State if Chris Paul didn't get hurt. That's the series that I need to see, because I want to see because if Houston wins, this whole thing is wide open. Like it'd be so crazy. Like it raises up the Eastern Conference playoffs, because now you're like the top three teams in the East have a legitimate chance to sit there and become the champion versus Houston, or if Houston doesn't make it out.
You say top three, I say all four.
I only think the teams out in the I don't. You know what? I don't think the 76ers. I don't think the 76ers can win the championship this year.
Okay.
I don't think. I think the coaching is well enough, and I think the front office threw a lot into to something that they needed. And we said this at the beginning of the year. They jumped ahead. But sometimes you need to go through those trials and tribulations to figure everything out. And with a team that was 2 years away from really contending, they moved it so fast, but we still see Ben Simmons, he needed more time to mature. And when you have a player that's ball dominant, he's a point guard. When you have a point guard, but then you add a ball dominant guard in Jimmy Butler, and yes, he can move around without the ball in Tobias Harris, but still he needs the ball too. And you got a phenomenal center down there who's going to be clogging up the lane. So the no shooting point guard, that's part of the thing he needs to do, is to get down there close to the rim. I think they moved a little bit fast. So I don't look at the 76ers as being a legit contender if Golden State gets beat. Yes, I think Milwaukee is. Yes, the talent on the Boston Celtics team dictates that you have to put them in and how they've been playing with it right now. And lastly, Toronto. But you know what? I don't really have Toronto as a team that I had at the beginning of the year that could beat Golden State now. I don't think they have enough punching power and looking as well as they're playing, because everything's basically predicated on if Siakam's going to go or if you're going to have Kawhi go. And we know when it gets to Golden State, you got to have more ammunition when you go through lows, because guess what? We shooting threes.
All right, so Ken's going Golden State and Houston Rockets. I'm going to say out east, I'm going to go Milwaukee and Boston, because now you're looking at what's arguably going to he's going to be mentioned as maybe one or two best player in the league, Giannis, the Greek freak. And then you look at a Boston team now who has Kyrie back, who has Gordon Hayward back. They're in the mix now, but his playoff run last year, Boston almost made it. Lost the final game in the Eastern Conference Final against the Cleveland Cavaliers. Yes, they did have LeBron James, but they were there. So now you have these two teams, probably the two best teams in the East, meeting in the second round. This is clearly a Eastern Conference Final matchup.
That's a Western Conference Final matchup too.
Oh, no doubt. Listen, I can honestly say, yeah, the two series you're talking about, yeah, those are two conference finals if you want to say. But man, I cannot wait to see what Giannis does next. And I'm curious to see what Boston does, because they're all back healthy and how that's going to shake up. So I think Golden State is going to beat Houston. It's probably going to go 6 games.
You still think Indiana dangerous? You were saying that. You was touting that up a couple months ago.
I was talking about Portland too, though.
Yeah.
I'm 500 then.
No, Portland ain't doing nothing.
Portland can go to the Western Conference Finals. I'm not saying they're going to win it, but they can probably go to the Western Conference Finals.
I'm talking about people I think can win it. I'm not talking about people just win it.
No, but I'm saying, though, we're talking about the playoffs and which one is going to be a good series. I'm going Milwaukee and I'm going Boston.
Yeah, the heart of this question was, for me, what's going to be the most entertaining series? And I'm looking at Toronto and Philly. And the reason why I love seeing the chippiness with Brooklyn and Philly. I think Embiid, with the stuff he's saying, Jimmy Butler, all these guys, I want to see that edge versus Toronto. And I want to see how Kawhi maybe handles it. Maybe they get in a little bit of trash talking with some of the other Toronto Raptors, because I don't expect Kawhi to partake in anything.
He might.
But I would think, ultimately, that this is a series that's going to be very interesting, because I agree with you guys. Probably Boston and Milwaukee should be the Eastern Conference Finals, because they're probably the two most talented team, but they won't be there. So who other than Milwaukee, because I think they will move on, maybe it's Boston, but let's say out of those two talented teams, who can challenge that team between Philly and Toronto? And I'm very split on that. So I want to see that series to see how those two play out.
Okay. Something different all the way around.
I think the biggest threat right now, looking at how the playoffs has started, to Milwaukee is probably Boston, because they've been there before.
Yeah, probably.
Yep.
I mean, but see, the thing is, if Kyrie's going to stay playing like he's playing, and well, let's put it like this: if Kyrie has to have an old LeBron Kyrie game, can he get back into playing how he's playing now, like he should have been playing majority of this year, instead of making it the Kyrie show? Being Kyrie when he needs to be, but letting the rest of these players flourish like they did last season.
And that's what's intriguing to me. That's
see, ultimately,
maybe not entertaining, but I'm intrigued.
Ultimately, I want to see Giannis versus Kawhi in that Eastern Conference Finals. Those two going at it. So that's why I really want to see this 76ers Toronto series, see if Kawhi can get out. That's what people thought with Kawhi and LeBron back in those finals.
No. One, you have someone that's ascending. When now, if you're putting a flip, then Giannis is Kawhi back in that finals. And this is my only thing. One of the things about Kawhi being a guy who he's really athletic, but he's not a quick twitch jump athletic guy. But clearly, his ability to get into the lane and get to the rim, you're gonna have Giannis there sometimes. Like, and Giannis,
sometimes.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. Like, and not just that, and Brook Lopez. And again, looking at how well Toronto's playing defensively, I mean, look, he's never been known as a great defender, but in pick and roll action, Marcus Gasol is playing well. And yes, they have Serge Ibaka. My only thought is still, and again, I don't know who's necessarily going to win, because if you find a way, and no one's found this way, to try to hamper what Milwaukee does, to me, because I saw it, Stephen A. Smith had posted something saying that he thought that
the Bulls were going to win?
No, that Kyrie was more important to this team than Giannis.
Oh, yeah, I saw that.
And I was like, hell no.
Yeah.
Like, I was like, because Kyrie's team got here last year. Now, actually, they got further last year without him. Kyrie is actually falling back like he should have, and allowing these kids to go, the whole team to go like he should have. Where this is something new with Giannis, and that offense is predicated on the fact of Giannis driving to that hole, and we got all these shooters. Even our center is shooting. What are you going to do about it? We about to bombard you with threes, and you can't stop Giannis. So what are you going to do? If you take Giannis off of Milwaukee, they're done. We've seen if you take Kawhi, and I'm not going to say that they can win a championship, but we've seen that Boston, with the amount of talent they have, can succeed without Kyrie there. Not win a championship, but we've seen that they can function on a high level without Kyrie there.
One quick question, really quick.
Yeah.
Who would be the toughest defender to Kawhi or to Giannis? Because to me, it's Kawhi and Kevin Durant, and that's it.
Oh, you mean ever?
No, just
in these playoff series.
I don't know.
Nobody
lengthwise Durant could get in there, but
Horford is a good defensive player. I'm interested to see with a veteran like that how he's going to be able to play him. But they played 3 games this season, and Milwaukee won 2. Because it comes down to matchups. That's basically your question. You're matching up who's going to match up against him. I guess maybe Kawhi, but like I said, with all the parts that builds Milwaukee, he could just drive and kick. He could set up. He could just do so much.
They're not putting him on him majority of the time because they're not going to wish
Who?
Kawhi on.
No, if they matched up, no, they won't. They
don't do that like back in the days. They don't want to get the guy in foul trouble.
Mm-hmm.
So probably you're going to see Pascal Siakam playing Giannis a lot.
If they match up against Toronto.
Yeah, because I'm not to say it won't be times when we
mainly probably in crunch time.
Yeah, but usually you're probably going to more see Pascal being the guy that necessarily would defend him. I'll say this, and it would probably be the tandem because they've been chippy before for me of if they saw the 76ers and you got the big down there who, like Giannis battles two bigs by himself with that team. And we've seen him basically disrespect Ben Simmons and at times Joel Embiid, but Joel Embiid has kind of gotten him back a little bit too.
And he's limpy.
That would probably be what I would look at as far as someone defensively. And I'm talking about two players taking him on because Kevin Durant would D him up because they got so much offense, you could kind of let KD do that compared to if it was OKC. They were probably, compared to if KD was still at OKC and that the value that they need on him not getting in foul trouble. But still, I mean, what's KD going to do when Giannis is driving to the hole like that?
Yeah.
Like, that's my only thing.
Boy, strong.
Yeah. Strong. Lean and strong.
Yeah.
Moving over to the Diamond.
Moncada drives it to center. Jones is back at the warning track. This is into the shrubbery. Oh my gosh, that thing was demolished.
That's got to be 460, 470 feet. I mean, it's 420 to straightaway center. Then you look at a row of hedges and you think, okay, maybe it'll come down there. It didn't. It went over that. Then you look at the second row of hedges. Well, maybe it'll come down there. It didn't. It went over that. Moncada gets every stitch of this baseball. I don't know if you can hit it too much harder to straightaway center field. But this is a blast. Jones can only look up, and that one almost hit the Chevy sign.
That's a foul. Zobrist is in. Here comes Bryant. Baez around third. Relay throw, not in time. He clears him. It's 3-0 in the first.
2 strikes on Contreras. He went back to that changeup yet again. My goodness, been one after another. He induces the ground ball, but it's pulled with authority right down the line.
A couple of guys that have been killing it at the plate on the Chicago baseball scene has been Wilson Contreras and Yoan Moncada. Both have 6 home runs. Moncada has 5 more RBIs with 18, and Contreras is hitting .321 compared to Moncada's .314. Which has had the better start, in your opinion, and who do you have more faith in that they can keep it up?
Ooh, that's a good question. I would say Moncada, probably because it's a change. Oh, what was your question again? Read the last part of the question.
Who has had the better start, and who do you have more faith in that they can keep this up?
Okay, we've seen Contreras do it before. He hit a low, but now he's back.
Yeah, made the All-Star team last year.
Exactly. So he hit that low and he came back. So that's a good point. That's a good tell that, hey, he gets it and he can work himself out of it. Moncada, he going to a new position and now he's flourishing. I want to see him hit that low and then come back out of it like Contreras did.
But who had the best start and who will finish strong?
I think that's a good question.
Yeah, because you won't answer it.
That's a good question. I'm trying to talk myself into it. No,
I want to see when he hits the low and come out. That's not the question.
I'm trying
Max
to
Kellerman.
I'm trying to talk myself into it. I say Contreras. I think he's had the better start. I like what he's doing because simple fact, like I said before, he's out of that low and he's hitting again. I like his start.
And do you have more faith that he'll keep it up?
Yeah, because I've seen him do it before.
I want to go Contreras because one, I know you didn't ask this importance-wise, he's a catcher, so he's involved with everything. But the reason why I will take Moncada is because Contreras is a catcher. There's a much higher risk of injury as far as a ball hitting you and also wear and tear.
Getting ran over.
Yeah, so just wear and tear, getting crouching and all that. So just because I'll say Moncada because we didn't expect it with the Open where Contreras has already been an all-star. And I'll also say Moncada because I think the wear and tear on a catcher compared to someone playing the hot corner at third, that there's a chance that Moncada won't break down this year like Contreras may break down. So I'll take Moncada, but I feel you. I want to take Contreras, but that's a lot. That's a lot of play. And we're also not thinking about this. He's playing in high inning games. The Cubs are a team that people are like, what y'all gonna do? You know, they're
high pressure games.
Yeah,
you talking about?
high pressure games.
Yeah.
There's people are like, what are y'all doing? When Moncada's, no one's really watching on the South Side like that. So it's not the same amount of pressure on Moncada as there is. And also, last point with Moncada and pressure, Eloy's there now. So it's taking some of that. You are supposed to get this franchise up and going off of his back somewhat.
Also, part with Tim Anderson and how he's been able to play.
Good point. So
he's been playing.
I think the start, because Moncada, we didn't expect. We had, it's funny, I was having a conversation. We had James Fagan on during the wintertime. And I asked him, and I basically was like, you know, yeah, Moncada may be good, but basically as far as what the bill of goods we were sold, that's probably not true. And to a certain degree, he agreed with that. So if we're going from that to where him having a whole season up in the pros, it's like, dude, yeah. I mean, you could say that he's too structured, or he takes too much time, or he's too disciplined is what I'm trying to say in his hitting. But it seems still like, dude, you're just gonna be a high strikeout dude. Them telling him go at it earlier in the pitch count has helped him, and I think that gives me more chance to think perhaps him at the beginning, as I said, why, but also again in the end, because I worry about Contreras not finishing.
I'm happily surprised about Moncada. I'm a White Sox fan too. I'm a little bit surprised because of how he has been playing so far. He's been in the big leagues, and seeing this, kind of like, oh wow, this is nice. I don't know how long it's gonna stay. I don't know if I'm getting food or not, but I'm happily surprised by it.
I think Moncada has probably the better start when you look at the two, because I mean, it was Southside misery. You gave away Chris Sale for this guy.
Yeah,
this is the piece, and it was like he might be a bust. And now all of a sudden it's like, ooh, I feel real good about that moving forward. Especially because he's a really great athlete.
I hate to say that, man. I got Chris Sale love. I'm happy he got paid.
He got paid.
I'm happy he got paid.
Yeah, he got paid.
But I think if you're looking at who I have more faith in to keep it up, I'm going to kind of piggyback off your point, D. I'm expecting a Moncada lull at some point. He's got to go through it, and he's got to make the adjustment, and I think he will. He's very talented. Contreras, I think, from what he's talked about with that interview with Kelly Kroll, he just stopped working, and that's where the lull came. And he's not going to allow that to happen again, so I would go with Contreras.
Yeah, a little fat and happy then.
Ooh, now from my favorite question of the Up for Grabs, because, it's a weekend. We've got NBA playoffs, NFL draft, Game of Thrones on Sunday, and Marvel's Avengers Endgame premiering this weekend.
God, seems like 1,000 years ago. I fought my way out of that cave, became Iron Man. Realized I loved you. I know I said no more surprises, but I was really hoping to pull off one last one.
I know death. He's got many faces. I look forward to seeing this one.
The world has changed. None of us can go back. All we can do is our best. And sometimes the best that we can do is to start over.
Our enemy doesn't tire, doesn't stop, doesn't feel.
Whatever it takes.
So it's a weekend for comic book fans and fantasy fans alike. Marvel's Avengers Endgame, as I said, opening up, and the highly anticipated episode of Game of Thrones. So my question is, what battle will be more epic? The battle of the Avengers against Thanos, or Jon Snow's fight with the Night King and the army of the undead?
That's not even the question. It's Jon Snow.
How we know we gonna get that battle though?
That's
in episode 3.
This is the thing.
Might not get to it. Might be leading to episode 4.
No. They're saying that this battle may be the longest battle in television and movie history.
What? Longer than the Battle of the Bastards?
Yes.
That was a great battle too.
They're saying that because remember, this is gonna be the first episode that's longer extended.
Oh, this is the first
This is an hour and
extensions?
20 something minutes. This episode. Clearly it's because of this battle. I mean, think about it. But like I thought at home, I thought the first episode was better than after. And the second episode, she liked the second episode, and I've seen people Lawrence, I think, Lawrence Holmes today was on there talking and was saying that he liked the second episode better. But to me, still, both of these episodes are cool, but they're filler episodes, setup episodes. This to me is the real episode of what we were waiting for from last year, outside of Danny and John finding out the true lineage of John or whatever. So I would say, because I know what Game of Thrones does, like Marvel, I love Marvel. It's cool, it's dope. I'm a big time Marvel guy, but this Game of Thrones, like this game, like this is gonna be, and also, I think we all have favorite Marvel characters, or everyone fighting. Some of the people we've already lost at our favorite characters, but really, let's be honest. It comes down to, is Cap's gonna die, or if Iron Man's gonna die, or if both are gonna die, right? There are gonna be way more people dying in Game of Thrones. We know Brienne became a knight. You was like, she dead. All right. Arya has some sex, all right?
Finally got it in.
Either her or Gendry is gonna probably end up gone.
Probably Gendry.
What's the dude, Podlick? The singer that Brienne's been carrying around? Podrick, yeah. I think I said that.
You said Potlick.
Yeah, you said Podlick.
I think I said Podrick. We got to go back to that one. I know I didn't say Potlick. I'm telling you that. I know I did not say Potlick. I know how Potlick comes in. But the thing is, I mean, think about it. He's probably gone. Jamie could be gone because it seems like the loop with him and Brienne.
Maybe he's done.
That's what I'm just saying.
Jamie is done.
The amount of people. Look, it wouldn't surprise me if Daenerys dies. And then, like, at the end, she's like, John, take the dragon. Like, you just don't know.
She might get killed by a dragon.
Like, it's just so, and so knowing that in Marvel, Cap or Iron Man or the two are gone in some fashion moving forward. But here with the close, and the thing is too, we all know the Avengers and the MCU is gonna keep going.
Yeah, right.
This is it for Game of Thrones. Yeah, they're gonna give you a prequel, but this is the end of the story, and we're gonna find out this is gonna be closer to who's sitting on the Iron Throne. So to me, it's all Game of Thrones. One last thing.
What?
There's only 4 more episodes left ever of it. All right? Marvel's gonna have 20 more of these movies. Guess what? There's gonna be 20 more NBA champions. I know this is not saying there's gonna be way more than that. This is it for Game of Thrones. So to say the least, and shout out to Tony for stealing our podcast, but this is gonna be it for Game of Thrones.
No, I agree with you. I think the simple fact of now we're out of the books. This is all original content that we're not gonna see again. This is gonna be like the end of The Sopranos, the end of Breaking Bad, the end of The Wire.
I didn't watch Breaking Bad, so I can't say that.
Right.
And it didn't seem like fans can complain, but we know they complained about that Sopranos.
They did. But it's just going to be the end of it, so you don't know what's going to happen. The one great thing I will say about Avengers, and shout out to our guy Brandon Pope. He's doing a 56-hour watch of all the Marvel movies leading up into Endgame. He's down at the AMC Theater down here in downtown Chicago. So I think he even got a hashtag on it. I forgot the name of the hashtag, but just follow Brandon on Twitter at BPopeTV. This has been 22 films, 11 to 12 years of a dedication of a movie arc. This is basically a television series in the theaters. And bringing in new characters that were kind of like B and C plus characters and made them into household names around the world. So that's what's really cool about what you're going to see with Endgame. But yes, I agree with my partner right here. You're not going to see Game of Thrones unless let's do a remake up and we're like 70 years and we could talk about like, man, this was better in 2019
That ain't how Arya with a surfboard.
It's 2047. Game of Thrones sucks.
Surfboard, like.
So we're never going to get that again. We know who's going to survive in Marvel because you know what? They got the movies already kind of laid out. So we got, but not to take away from it because we're just enjoying the entertainment that we have put in.
But remember, this is just about the
movies.
Battles, not the climaxes of
these
shows.
I think with
the pure battle scene.
I think we're going to get more battles with Game of Thrones. Sure. So I would think the more battles, the better. Like more the merrier. The more battles, the merrier.
And it's more people dying that you care about.
That's true,
dude. There's only so many people. We know. Well, first of all, Marvel, they gonna bring people back.
We already know.
There's no question they're bringing these people
There's
back.
There's a Spider-Man 2 coming out, everybody.
Exactly. They're bringing.
He was dusted, but he's back.
Yeah, they're bringing them back.
Tony, I feel like this, Tony.
Yeah. So how can I sit Spider-Man there? 2, come and soon. I know for the most part the outcome isn't as bad. Like this battle, basically, we're just basing off a battle. This battle is going to help define the future of this show, where we already know.
You been reading spoilers?
No.
Oh, okay. So this has been kind of like talked about in this episode 3, what you've been seeing.
Yeah,
they talk about.
Yeah,
okay,
I've been reading anything really in the future.
Okay.
But this battle is going to determine who ends up on the throne. We already know the Avengers win. Right, like we know that. You know, Brian. You don't think the Avengers gonna win in the end?
I hope not.
All right, like, you root for Thanos.
Maybe it might be a twist where they don't defeat Thanos, but they're able to just kind of like win the day, but maybe they don't beat Thanos.
And you know what that'd be?
What?
Lame.
Yeah, that would be lame.
We can't.
I don't know what
at the end, Thanos is like, you know what, guys? I was bogus. Here, take this gun.
No.
I don't even know what I was thinking, man.
No, maybe they might defeat him and send him off somewhere. I don't know.
Which I hate.
Well, listen,
see Rick Grimes on The Walking Dead.
True, very true. But at least just kind of wrap it up. At least with definitely gonna get your thoughts, Ryan. But the reviews of Endgame have been outstanding. All the tweets that came out after people saw the premiere last night said it is, one person said, and this is their own opinion, it's the greatest comic book movie ever made. It's the way they set it up, the ending, everything, the emotions of it, said it's the greatest thing they ever seen. So, I mean, it's bigging it up very big. So this movie is going to be great anyway. But damn it, give me more battles. And I think we're going to have a lot more battles. How many episodes we got left? 4 in Game of Thrones? Is it possible that we get like 3 battle episodes and the last episode is kind of like it just kind of flushes it out? Yeah. Or I don't know.
But they won't be like this because we know the only real battle left is Cersei and the Golden Army.
Yeah. Does Cersei appear in episode 3 or 4? I don't know, you know.
So that's the only question, and we don't even know if it'll get to that. Depending on which way the Golden Army come, we don't know necessarily the agreement that was struck with the Golden Army. You saw Cersei was upset the pachyderms didn't show up.
Mm-hmm.
Like, where the elephants? I heard you guys rode with elephants. Like, yeah, it was a sea.
You're too damn fat to go on the sea.
Yeah,
how many elephants did you want us to bring over?
You know Dothraki don't like taking the horses across the sea. How you think an elephant feel about crossing the sea?
It's called mass and weight and they sink.
I will say I would probably have to lean Game of Thrones, but that was where I was going to kind of go D with those reviews that are coming out about this. Like, they are trying to make it sound like this is 100% ensured amazing. Jury's still a little out on how amazing Game of Thrones will be at the end. Now, that's the other thing, too, that I want to kind of bring up to maybe defend Marvel. We know a blueprint, right, of what's going to happen in this Endgame movie.
Yeah.
We don't know the blueprint for Game of Thrones, and we're assuming that that is going to be a better thing because we don't know what's going to happen. How do we not know that Game of Thrones is going to throw in some crazy twist and it's not going to be quite what we thought it would be?
Listen, it happens, i.e., not saying the entire series, but that Lost ending, people are pissed.
I'm still pissed.
Hey, how about this?
Being the greatest show of all time to trash.
I'll even go to comedy. Seinfeld, probably one of my favorite sitcoms of all time. That last episode
was until Kramer was sliding in the door saying the N-word.
Hot trash.
And the crazy part is
that ending. That last episode was.
I still never watched that ending.
You didn't.
At the time I was gonna save it. I was like, and I mean, I went through a period. I used to make my father watch Seinfeld. That was my favorite sitcom.
Love Seinfeld.
I think that's the only episode I saw live of Seinfeld.
Really?
Yeah, it's funny because I really got into
I watched it live too. Yeah.
Watching when it went to what's the name, syndication, because I could watch it every day or whatever.
Oh, Seinfeld on TBS after high school was done. I watched that.
So on Hulu, I believe now, so you can kind of go back and binge watch that.
But real quick, to your point about we know what they can do in battles. Yeah, we know what Marvel can do in battles, but like how many times have we been like, that battle scene in Marvel was off the chain? Because how often do we talk about
one?
But how often do we talk about the battle with Thanos and his guys?
What?
The battle that they had with Thanos and his Dark Riders or whatever they're called.
The Black Circle?
Yeah.
I think that's the name of them.
But how many times do we talk about that battle?
No, you really don't. I think if you talk about any kind of battle within the Marvel universe, I can think of 3 off the top of my head. Definitely an elevated scene in Captain America: Winter Soldier. And 2, no, it's not.
It's Born Identity.
Nope.
It's just Born Identity.
Nope.
We put an American shield on the guy and said, do Jason Bourne.
No. And 2, definitely coming, I think, out of Infinity War, when the battle in Wakanda. That was great.
What about the first Avengers?
That's a good one too. In New York, that was a great one too. Yes, that was a great one too. And the battle on Titus with Thanos.
The battle was a little trash.
Man, Thanos threw a planet at Tony Stark.
He went toe to toe with Thanos.
Boom!
Stop stabbing like a man.
Stop talking. You're getting them angry.
We're confused, but see, the problem is we're confused. You only name one battle scene.
I just named 4.
No, you named 4 fight scenes. You said the battle. If me and Ryan got into a fight right now, it's not a battle, it's a fight. If the 3 of us jumped on you, if the 3 of us jumped on you, it's not a battle, it's a fight.
Every battle we talked about was more than just one-on-one.
No, dude,
it was multiple people.
One guy fighting 5 dudes in the elevator is not a battle to me.
So you're still stuck on the fact that you don't like Winter Soldier. You think it's Born Identity.
No.
Every other battle I talked about was a freaking battle.
It is a Born Identity. No, you named one more.
The first Avengers?
The first Avengers, the battle with Wakanda, and the battle on Titus.
No, it was.
No, that was it.
You named the one with him throwing the.
That was a battle. It was like all of them.
How many people was it there?
It was Star-Lord. It was
I don't
Batista.
count him as super enough.
It was Batista.
And we know Batista couldn't be Ronan.
It was a girl.
You don't even know her name.
Doctor Strange. He was there. Spider-Man was there. Iron Man was there. What are you talking about?
I think that's a fight.
And Thanos was basically the strongest person in the universe at that point.
The guy.
That's a Wednesday.
Oh my God.
Shout out to Farouk, by the way, who's supplying us with these beats for this
Farouk.
Up for Grabs. My former IMS teacher.
There you go.
Love Farouk.
Former interns right here. Yeah.
Y'all do. Great
At
guy.
Roquan, RUQONE. Follow him. Reach out to him if you like his beats and check him out.
All right, Dean Davis Show. We're going to come right back and we're going to jump into a little bit of basketball with Micheal Lee, senior writer of the Athletic NBA. Talk about this playoffs, talk a little bit, unfortunately, about the Bulls, and talk about who in the future of the NBA we may find in the playoffs. Dean Davis
Show. What's up, Chicago? This is Chris Sosa from Red Eye, and you're listening to the Dean Davis Show.
D and Davis Show, and right now we're joined by senior writer for the Athletic NBA, Micheal Lee. How you doing, Mike?
I'm doing great,
Look, I definitely want to start off with asking you about the Trailblazers Oklahoma City matchup, and especially what's going on and the ramifications, if there are any, with people's views on Russell Westbrook. But I want to start off with this real quick because a friend of mine was talking to me today, and I just don't understand that, and this narrative has played out this season in Chicago. What are your thoughts on Ben Simmons? Because here in the city, some people think he is trash. And even though he can't shoot, I still look at the stats that he's putting up now and think, of course, he may not become he probably will never become a pure shooter, but usually guys do pick up shots. And I was having a conversation with somebody, and it was funny to think about at the beginning of Jason Kidd's career, who would ever thought he'd be in the top 10 in three-pointers made in the NBA.
They call him Ace and Kidd because Jay wasn't there.
I said the same thing. He was Ace and Kidd. But when it comes to Ben Simmons, and not just your thoughts, but what are the prevailing thoughts? Because it's a lot of cats in here in Chicago just think he's trash. And I look at their Twitter feeds and I'm like, what's going on nowadays?
Well, I'll say this. I think that Ben Simmons is a phenomenal talent. He's one of the best in the league, young players. He's just 22 years old. And I think he's just now figuring out that there's a certain way that he has to play. There's a certain amount of energy that he has to play with. Because he doesn't have a jump shot, he has to overcompensate by playing hard. And one of the issues that I've criticized him for, and I think a lot of people have noticed, is that he doesn't always play hard. And I think that when you can't shoot and you don't play hard, you're going to have a really ugly game from time to time. And that's what happened to him in Game 1. I think he got called out for it. But I think the one thing is, like, you got to look at him like, I'll say, a Rondo. He's always been compared to like a 6'10" Rondo. But the thing about Rondo is that he can't shoot, but he can make shots. And you always know that you're going to feel him every time he's on the floor because of what he's going to do, either from getting rebounds or assists or something. You're going to make his presence felt. I think being called out by the fans, being called out in Game 1 has sort of ignited him and brought out the best of Ben Simmons because everyone knows what he's capable of, but he doesn't always bring it. And I think that's just kind of just being a young guy trying to figure things out. You learn along the way. If you don't come hard, you don't come with the effort all the time, you can get embarrassed. And one thing he doesn't want to do is be embarrassed.
Dean Davis on the line. We have Micheal Lee, senior writer for the Athletic NBA. Mike, let's switch over to the Trailblazers in OKC. You look at the fact that the Trailblazers have been knocked out in the first round the last two postseasons, and a lot of times, and we had on Sean Highkin last week.
Yeah,
and I asked him about his thoughts on can Russ and CJ McCollum really coexist, which clearly they're showing they can. But being that diminutive, old school style Pistons backcourt, you just wonder really if they had like a elite wing player, it'd be good. And of course, if Nurkic didn't get hurt, they probably would have been got. But when you look at this matchup now, and Dame is basically to me proving that this season, and we know it changes because the point guards are so competitive in NBA. This season seems like perhaps he's the best all-around point guard this season, I would say. Has this affected the rankings or where you rank Russell Westbrook with looking at the fact that his shot isn't falling this entire season and he's just getting obliterated in some ways by Damian Lillard?
Well, a lot there. I guess I'll start with Damian Lillard and just I think Steph Curry is the best point guard in the league. I'm not going to overlook him.
I think I think that too. I think that.
But
go ahead.
I will say that Damian Lillard is up there among the three best leaders in the NBA.
Okay.
And I think when you look at the Portland Trailblazers, they have been a testament to character and just what the value of character and having the pride, what that's going to do for you, because they got humiliated last year being swept by the Pelicans, and they could have spent the entire summer pointing fingers, being upset, blaming each other. But they came back and said, we're going to be better, and we're not going to let that be how the story's told. They're kind of like the Virginia of the NBA, where they got embarrassed, but they want to come out and really just show what they're made of when they're really being tested. A lot of people thought that they would have folded or plummeted, that they may have even been knocked out of the playoffs with LeBron coming in the West. But not only did they proved that they could win, they got the exact same spot, the third seed, and in a position to, advance now 3-1. It just shows just what the team is made of. Losing Nurkic late in the year, losing McCollum late in the year, all these times that we think they were going to be broken, they didn't. And that is primarily because of Damian Lillard, because he's never one of these guys that sits around saying, hey, I need some help. They got to give me they got to give me a wing player that can do this, or they got to give me this and that. Nah, he's like, I'm going to uplift everybody on this roster. I'm going to make them believe that they can contribute. And you see it when guys like Farouk Aminu, you see guys like Mo Harkless, you see Enes Kanter coming in. You see these guys, they believe because they have a leader right now who's inspiring them. And they know that, I asked Terry Stotts about it. I said, what is it that makes Damian so special as a leader? And Terry Stotts told me, there's no BS to him. And there isn't. And I think that when you look at some other guys that get caught up in a lot of ancillary things that aren't important, he's about inspiring his teammates. And as for Russ, I think that one of the issues that he's dealing with now is that he's stubbornly playing a style of play that is not conducive to success, postseason success. He does not have the luxury of having Kevin Durant on his team anymore, so he's not going to be guaranteed trips to the conference finals or even to the finals. Those days are over. So he's going to have to adjust, especially with him getting older and having multiple knee surgeries and not necessarily being that dynamic, overwhelming, athletic whiz that he's been in the past. So he has to change things up. He has to inspire his teammates in a similar way that Damian does, because otherwise he's going to wind up losing. He's got to make smarter decisions in the clutch. He can't take everything as a personal challenge. If teams are giving you that shot, sometimes they're doing it because they know you're going to miss it. You have to respect the fact that you might not make it and not just stubbornly constantly take those shots. I think this is really, maybe if they go out again, third year in a row, losing in the first round, you're not winning 50 games in any of these seasons without Durant, despite having an MVP candidate season from Paul George. You got to look inward and figure out, what can I do besides getting just stats, getting assists? Because it's not just about assists. Damian Lillard doesn't average 10 assists, but you can't tell me he doesn't make his teammates better.
Yeah.
There are ways you can make your teammates better aside from statistics, and Russ has got to figure that out.
No, look.
Maybe he never will.
I think Steph is the best. My thing is, I look at the fact that there are more short people in the world, so they're more talented short point guards in the league, especially with how wide open the offense is today. If I was making a team, I would use Steph. But looking at who he has on his team and what he's done, I feel like this season that Dame has the award should go to him, even though, with record-wise, I can see it's still going to Steph as far as first team. Real quick, before D jumps in. Definitely you're a media professional. You're out there getting it. When you're looking at Russ, my last Russ question. You're looking at Russ and his interaction with Barry Trammell. What are your thoughts? Is this the way that necessarily a guy that doesn't get along with a reporter should necessarily handle himself? And what has the team done? It seems like maybe they've talked to him, but what do you think the team should do when it comes to Russ and his interaction with Barry Trammell?
I think they've already reached the point of no return. I think the things are too far gone because that's how they've allowed them to become. Anybody that's been in the media, you've been working as long as I've been working in the business, you're going to have times where you don't like talking to players, where you wind up arguing or fighting over something, and you have times where you don't want to talk to each other. And that happens. That comes with the territory. That comes with the business. The problem now is that it's become some sort of petty public spectacle, and now that's what all people want to talk about. When I think that the real story is not just his interaction with Barry Trammell, because that's what it is. It's always been that way. Russ has been difficult with the media his entire career. It's not like it just happened. It's not like this is the one time that it's happened. It's the one time that he's, blocked out a reporter for an entire year. But it's not the only time he's been petty with a reporter. He's done it a lot. So, but I also don't think fans care. I don't think it really matters in the big scheme of things. I knew when there was a player that didn't want to talk to me, then I'd be like, all right, I can write without you. I don't need you. I can find a way to tell the story without having your voice. And chances are your quote was going to be lame anyway, and I didn't need it. And that's how I viewed it. So you move on, and you don't really make a big deal of it in this profession. And eventually maybe they come back around, maybe they don't, but so what? So be it. The real issue, I think, for me, is Russ going to grow up on a basketball court? Is he going to mature and develop there and have the ability to just not just be in total control of the franchise and not just running it to the point where you have the PR guy, you're looking off to him to make sure that this reporter doesn't ask you questions. Like, to me, I think that's where it kind of crosses the line. But it is what it is. Like, as reporters, you're gonna clash for players from time to time. It's just like the same way if you spend all your days with a spouse or with somebody else or a roommate, you're going to fight from time to time because you're sick of being around them. And that just happens just with media when you're around these guys as much as we are. You're around these players more than your family. They're around these reporters more times than their family a lot of times. So it's bound to happen. But I think the real story that needs to be addressed is, where does Oklahoma City go from here? What does Sam Presti do from here? Because we're 3 years removed from Kevin Durant leaving, and you're no better than you were when he left. And the payroll says you should be something else.
D and Davis Show, recording right here at 670 Score. On line with us right now, Micheal Lee, senior writer at The Athletic NBA. Make sure you follow Michael on Twitter at Mr. Micheal Lee. Giannis just balled out in that series against the Pistons. And listen, it was against a less than healthy Pistons team. But just give me your thoughts on Giannis so far right in the playoffs, first playoff win, and what do you expect, or how do you expect, because they're going up against the Celtics, how do you expect Boston to kind of slow him down?
Well, he's going to see a lot more Al Horford. He's going to see a guy that can actually have the lateral quickness as a big man to stay in front of him and make him work. I think Boston's going to really put it on his teammates to step up and have big games. They're really going to make Eric Bledsoe beat them. They're going to make Chris Middleton beat them. They're going to do a lot to try to get the ball out of Giannis' hands. They're going to probably use the same strategies they've used against LeBron over the years, and even what they used against Giannis last year in the playoffs, to just make it an issue where his teammates are going to have to bail him out. But I think Giannis has proven through the course of this year that he's going to find a way, that he's going to be determined enough to put his team on his back and wield them. It'll be interesting because they have not been tested. They didn't get tested in the first round by Detroit, but they did build consistent, steady habits over the course of 82 games. They never got too high. They never got too low. And this is going to be a real interesting contrast between the two franchises because Boston's been up and down all year. They've had these chemistry issues. They've had free agency questions with Kyrie and, like, what's going to happen with that. And they got guys who are upset about roles and not buying in. Milwaukee hasn't had any drama. They just won 60 games. They didn't have any serious loser streaks. They withstood injuries. They've done all this stuff. So it's going to be interesting in contrast to see how these two teams come together. I typically feel that consistent habits get rewarded in the playoffs, and who you are, is revealed in the postseason. But I think that they've proven who they are throughout the course of the season. That being said, the talent on Boston is so overwhelming.
Yeah.
And when it comes down to, like, making crunch time decisions, Boston knows that they got 3, maybe 4 killers who can get a bucket in crunch time. And with Milwaukee, if it's going to be a late game situation, what's going to happen if Giannis gets double, triple teamed and has to give up the ball? Who's going to make that play for them? Eric Bledsoe hasn't really had a proven track record. Is he going to be able to do it? Is Chris Middleton going to be able to do it? Is somebody else, like a Mirotic, somebody going to be able to do it? And that's really what Milwaukee's going to have to prove to us. But I'm excited about seeing it. There's going to be every playoff series in the Eastern Conference, the second round, looks like it's going to be a doozy, and setting up a real nice conference finals as well. I think it's been a while since we can look forward to the Eastern Conference playoffs and say that they're probably more intriguing than the West. Although if we get Houston and Golden State in the second round, that's going to be pretty special too.
Yeah, no, that's definitely like it's going to happen. But no, I agree with you wholeheartedly. You got Milwaukee and the Bucks, and expecting it's going to be the 76ers versus Toronto. But real quick, sticking with Boston, now they're a series they're a series ahead this year. Kyrie wasn't really around last year. You just talk about the depth of it. I mean, you look at the coaching, not probably the best coming out of Boston, but I know that's the depth. But do you think there could be any kind of, what's the word I'm looking for? Just uneasiness when it gets tight in that series against Milwaukee? And you asking those questions like, man, who team is it? Is it Kyrie, or do we going to see Scary Terry kind of step up as Jaylen Brown? I mean, do you worry about that if you're Boston? Now you hear deeper with Kyrie that it might not work out the way you want it to.
Nah,
no.
I don't think they're worried about that at all, because they know for a fact that Kyrie's gonna be that guy, and if they aren't certain about it, whoever inbounds the ball, if he'll get it to Kyrie, he's gonna make sure that he's that guy.
Okay.
So, and if he needs to get open, he needs to get his shot. He's gonna break down whoever's in front of him with some kind of jerky. He's gonna show those handles. He's gonna get to the bucket. He's gonna get a bucket. He's been doing that his whole career, and he's one of the few guys who you can say that when the bright lights are on and the stage gets bigger, he steps up. He performs. That shot he hit against
Golden State
the Warriors in Game 7, that wasn't some fluke. That was years of preparation. That was years of, like, wanting to be in those moments and embracing it the minute it came his way. So I don't think the Boston's going to have that problem, because I think they know who their guy is. And if it hasn't been clear, throughout the course of the season, he's made it clear over the course of his career.
Look, let me ask you this real quick. I think we all expect GSW to win the title this year. But looking at the teams that I believe, and this wasn't just recently, Mike. I was saying this when Chris Paul came back, that I thought Houston was probably was peaking again and perhaps has a chance. Not that they should win, but looking at I have Houston and I have Milwaukee as the two teams that I have ranked the highest as far as beating GSW. Do you have a different team? And out of those two teams, which one do you think has the better chance to take GSW out if anyone can?
I've been leaning towards Boston just because they have the talent and they have, like, the versatility with their lineups that they can actually throw different things at the Warriors, and they went and beat them pretty handily in the regular season, although who knows if that meant anything, considering how the Warriors took some games off in the regular season. But if I had to rank them, I go Boston 1, I go Houston next because they clearly were right there, up 3-2 in the conference finals last year, and they're deeper this year. They're a better team than they were last year. So, and James Harden is playing the best basketball of his career, which is incredible since he was MVP last year, and he might not win MVP this year. It tells you how great Giannis has been too. But I think that if it'd be Boston, then it would be Houston, and then it would be Milwaukee, and then after that it'd be Toronto. I think the teams that could give, Golden State a real good run for their money.
Dean Davis on the line right now, Micheal Lee, senior writer for the Athletic NBA. Real quick, so you're telling me before the playoffs you still have Boston as the number one team? Because you're looking in the crystal ball with how that team was playing. I know you said that looking at their regular season performance to get them, but I'm just saying if you still had it all in for them, you the man.
No, I did because I looked at the talent.
Okay.
And for me, I'm blinded by the talent. It's like walking in with a platinum diamond necklace, man. I'm looking at it and I can't take my eyes off of it. That's what the Celtics are coming into the playoffs. And I know that they dropped it in the mud a couple of times, but once they wipe it off and you get that shine, man, it's still right there. Like, oh snap, they have a lot of talent. They got Kyrie Irving, they got Gordon Hayward, who is coming back from injury, but he seems like he's finding a rhythm. They got Jaylen Brown, a guy who's having 30-point games in the playoffs. They got Jason Tatum, a guy who wants it in the he got like a Kyrie gene in him where he wants it when the stage is bigger. And you got Al Horford, a guy who hasn't really had a breakthrough in terms of getting to the finals, but has been there his entire career, 12 years. You can count on Al Horford being there, playing in games that matter. So when you look at that roster, you look at that talent, they have a proven track record. They got the squad that's been to the conference finals the last 2 years. So I know that they have a lot of things they got to work out in terms of chemistry. But when it's playoff time, you can put all that other stuff aside, man, and say, hey, if we come together for these 2 months, we wind up with a ring, we can worry about all that other stuff afterward. We can worry about getting paid after this. We can worry about who's going to go where in free agency after this. But right now, what we got is special. We can do something. So that's kind of what I saw. Now, if Milwaukee wins, I'm not going to be shocked. But I just feel like, hey, I'm not going to jump on and off a bandwagon. I might as well stay on until I'm shoved off.
So
there you go.
You're saying when the light hit the ice, it twinkle and glisten.
Exactly, man.
Okay, I'm just
with a little bit of green diamonds in there.
Since you don't love hip hop no more, I guess I thought I'd give you that one. Real quick. You take.
Hey, but the words love and like both have 4 letters. It's just 2 different things altogether. But we can talk about some other things.
I got to use that one.
There you go. That's a good one.
You've been using that one for a minute. You done hurt some girls' hearts with that one. I know you done pulled that one out like love and like. Both, like, oh, he hurt me. Stop talking to me like that, Mike. Stop talking to me like real quick. And you know how dire our situation here is in Chicago. So not saying that the Bulls would necessarily be a team that should get this type of props. But you look at the teams like the Bucks and the Nuggets, teams that were on the periphery of the playoffs last year or teams at the very bottom. We know the Bucks just missed it with the last game of the season. I mean, the Nuggets did. What are the teams, if 2, that you can see right now that are on the edge of the playoffs? Maybe they're the 8th seeds or something like that, or outside of the playoffs that can perhaps take another step. And if they're not necessarily contending, be huge teams on the rise next season.
I like what Atlanta's doing. I don't know how long it's going to be before they are able to, become a playoff team or turn the corner, but I like what they're building there. That's going to be a team I'm going to be looking at down the road. I like what the Clippers are doing. They're obviously, in the playoffs now, but I think that they're setting a culture, and they got a really exciting young backcourt with the rookies with SGA. I can't really say his name, Shy, and Landry Shamet. And I think that the Clippers are a team that I'm really excited about, especially they can wind up landing a Kawhi or a KD or even a Jimmy Butler in free agency. If they can add, a nice, wing player, I think that they're moving in the right direction because they got a culture right now and they're in LA, so I think people are going to be excited. And then, the Nets are getting kind of throttled right now, but I like what they're building too. Yeah. The fact that they're able to turn it around pretty quickly. So those are the teams that kind of jump out. I can't think of a fringe playoff team that I'm like, oh yeah, I think they're almost there, because I think it's going to take time for a lot of these teams that were, that had rough years this year.
Mike, I want to kick it back over to the playoffs and out west. Thoughts on the Denver Spurs series, And is that whoever wins that, is it still a toss-up between with Portland, or do you think Portland's just a better team out of the two?
I think Portland's the better team, and I think that they have a lot more to prove. I think Denver is a team that I really like what they've done all year. I think that they're going to come out in this series. It may take 7 games to do it, but I think they'll come out because they have the deeper team. But I'm interested to see what happens in the second round. But I think Portland wins that, and it gets a chance to go to the conference finals. And whoever they get, if Houston gets the upset, I think Portland could really give them a series. I think Portland could even upset them if that happens. If they get the Warriors again, then hey, thanks for coming out. God bless. Good night. But, but I think if it's anybody else but them, I think Portland, it gets pretty wide open for them after that.
And your thoughts on what's going on with Sacramento Kings and Luke Walton? They have the allegations against him of sexual assault, I believe. Do you think this is a case of where teams just kind of rush real quick to go out there and get that guy, and maybe it's a time like, you know what, let's just wait? Not saying they probably knew what was going to happen.
He just had a job, though.
Yeah,
so
but
clearly they didn't notice that was coming.
Yeah, but he had the job way before he even walked out the door. Is this the case of just kind of waiting a little bit?
I think that was just lined up. I think that once they knew that he was probably going to get fired by the Lakers, that was the opener that they had wanted all along. I mean, from what I heard, Vlade Divac wanted to hire Luke Walton in 2016 before the Lakers got to him, and once he did, he kind of settled for Jaeger. But once I think it was pretty clear, probably in February, that Luke was going to be fired at the end of the season, even if they made it to the playoffs. I think they kind of had that thing lined up, because it's not often a guy gets fired and is hired before he even gets a chance to see the ink dry on anything. It's like he walked out the door and into another immediately.
Yeah.
And but I think that was sort of set up. That was lined up. And I don't understand the situation enough to speak on it. He's already come out and denied that it happened. I don't know. Whenever you have these kind of situations, it's really tough to speculate. But I know for a fact that Sacramento wanted Luke Walton for the last 3 years, and they just waited for the opening. And clearly they hopped in the moment they had their first chance.
Yeah, Mike, you come joining us. He want to hit you with the rape question.
Hey, listen, it's a big NBA story right now.
Man, we trying to sit here and socialize and enjoy ourselves.
We got to talk about everything.
Look, real quick, going back to NBA futures, I liked the trade last year of moving out DeMar DeRozan, even though at the time you didn't know LeBron was definitely going to leave, even though I think we all kind of felt he was leaving out of the East. And even if it failed when it comes to necessarily them being able to re-sign Kawhi, you can flip it over and start over again. And looking at a player like Pascal Siakam, looking at what his future may be with the length and how my man can get to that rim and even kind of knocking down the three, what are your thoughts on his game and where he may be moving forward in the NBA? How high do you view his ceiling?
Oh, man, it's really tough to say, because I didn't expect he'd be this good. I think that he's on a track. He's on that path where he could be like a Giannis Light. He's clearly the second best player on the Raptors this year, and some nights he's the best player, as he was in Game 3, in Orlando. So I just think that he's a guy that you can look to. He's the one impressive stat about him this year, and it's not the numbers might be a little off, but this is why I think he was the most improved player by a lot this year. I don't even think it was close. Last year, I think he was assisted on 76% of his shots last year, or something close to that. Basically, 3/4 of his shots were assisted by somebody else. This year, it was close to 50% of his shots were assisted, which means that he was creating stuff off the dribble. He was doing things that he was not able to do last year. And to me, that shows improvement. So I don't really want to put a cap on him and say he can be this or that, because he's already made a huge leap to me. And he's become probably their most dependable player in that he played practically every game. And so Kyle Lowry felt comfortable taking nights off. Kawhi Leonard was able to get load managed, for 22 games, and they didn't have to worry about anything, because this kid was coming in like, I got it. And to me, that's what made it very impressive. So I could say he can be this and that, but he's already exceeded what I thought he could be for a guy going 27. That's why you got to give Masai Ujiri a lot of credit, because of what he's been able to build to the back end of the draft with second-round picks and undrafted players. And that's why I always feel like a lot of NBA teams feel like, well, we got to strike it big with lottery picks. We got to strike it big and tank. We got to do this and that. No, if you have good scouts and you can see and tell who can play, you can make wise decisions and build a team that way. And you don't have to just get lucky and hope that you wind up getting a franchise cornerstone. You can find one and develop one, because we see right now the MVP of the league was drafted 13th. Okay, so you don't have to be the number one pick to be a star in this league.
Dan Davis on the line right now. Micheal Lee, senior writer for the Athletic NBA. Michael, this is my last one. Bringing it here in Chicago, still sticking with futures. What do you like and dislike about the structure of this Bulls team and perhaps their coaching staff?
I like what they're doing. I think it depends on what they wind up getting in the draft, like what their pick winds up being. But I'm pretty optimistic about their future. I mean, I love the way Zach LaVine come on. I really want to see Lauri Markkanen take the next step. I know he had some injuries this year that sort of held him back. But I'd like to see him, make the progression that I think the Bulls are hoping, because he has a lot of talent. He has a lot of ability. We know that. He just hasn't been able to bring it consistently, and that's the next step. That's what you have to do to really be an elite player in the league, is be somebody that you can count on, not somebody that you just celebrate every time they have a good game. And I think he has to take that leap. Otto Porter's a great locker room guy. He's a good team player. He knows how to play the right way. He's a smart player. So he's a good piece to have on your team. I know people may want to get caught up in the contract, but if you're not writing a check, you don't need to sweat it. Just worry about what a dude can play and contribute, and he can. And I think that Jim Boylen, he's got the confidence of the organization right now. They seem to be behind him, and that's really what every coach needs. And I think at that point, the players are going to have to buy in. Paxson has proven that there's a certain type of coach that he likes, going from Scott Skiles to Tibbs to now this guy. He wants somebody who's going to be a grinder and in your face, and that's sort of what seems to, get Paxson off. So if that's the kind of coach you're going to have, that's what you're going to get used to, and you're going to have to deal with it. But if they get a John Morant or somebody like in the lottery, I like what they're doing. But it's just, I think a lot depends on what they do in terms of getting a lottery pick, because I don't think they anticipated they'd be as bad as they were this year, but they were. And you just got to take the blessing that you might get a good player out of it and go on from there.
Yeah, they were bad. Last one for me, man. Who you got for MVP?
I think I've said it like 10 times. Giannis Antetokounmpo.
There you go.
We don't have to overthink this. Best player on the best team. Historic season. He has it all. The defensive metrics. James Harden's had a remarkable year. But again, when I talked about Milwaukee, steady, dependable all year long. There's been no slip-up. There's been nothing like people say James dug his team up out of a hole. Well, you also got to give him credit for digging the hole. So Giannis never did that to his squad. So he's been MVP all season.
My only problem with that.
We got some coins on this right here, Michael.
My only problem with that, because I agree with you, the old rule should stand. Best player on best teams.
Yep.
But they threw that out the window when they gave it to Russ.
They did, and I was not happy with that.
I said then he should. If he had gotten to the third in the West, maybe I would have said forget it, give it to him because of that season. But back in the days, a player with the fourth or worst record in his conference getting MVP, that's crazy.
And to me, I like Russ, and so I didn't really want to say anything to seem like I was bashing him during that period. But for me, my argument was always this. Everyone's like, well, it's never been done. It's been 50 years since somebody had a triple-double. I'd be like, yeah, but what happens when he gets triple-double next year? Because he's going to get it again next year. Is he automatically get the MVP just because no one else has ever done it? I said, and also, the last time a player averaged a triple-double, I said,
he didn't get the MVP.
Who was MVP that year?
No, he didn't.
It was not
Roscoe. Yeah, it wasn't.
And it was not. It was Bill Russell. But do you know what Wilt Chamberlain did that year?
Yeah, with the 50, he was averaging like 50 points.
He averaged 50 and 25.
Yeah.
A dude averaged 50 and 25, then get MVP? I don't want to hear about a triple-double.
But see, and then listen, and going along with that, that's probably why James Harden's going to get the MVP this year.
You said he will or won't?
I'm a Giannis guy. I said
Ken thinks that Harden's going to get it. I've been touting the same thing. We all been kind of saying the same thing about Giannis.
Close. I think it's going to be close, but I think that Giannis has been so good. Milwaukee hasn't had the best record in the NBA in 45 years since Lou Alcindor. I mean, I think he's MVP. So we don't have to overthink it. It's right there for you.
You got to come back.
There you go, Michael. Hey, man. Yeah, exactly. You can't just words right out of my mouth, man. You got to come back, man. Hop on with us. Love talking basketball with you.
Have a good one, bro.
Take care.
All right, and that was Micheal Lee, senior writer for The Athletic. Make sure you follow Michael on Twitter at Mr. Micheal Lee. That was good, man.
Yeah.
That was good talk right there.
Yeah, I still think James Harden's going to get that. And I'm with.
know.
Look, if the rule hadn't been broken, I'm with you. But also, but we know now that in this microwave society, and this what have you done for me lately? And look at what he just said. Wilt was 50 and 25. The Big O averaged a triple-double. He still didn't get it. And I know the rules were different back then because, of course, people may have appreciated winning, and it's happened more back in the days.
But you always have these little blips, though. You have a little blip like that.
Yeah, but we didn't reward them.
That blip could have been Russell Westbrook.
But we didn't reward them with MVPs for the blip.
No, I'm saying, though, this could have been the blip. That could be Russ could have been the blip, and then you kind of go back to it. You don't think we're going to go back to it?
No, I think it'll always be as long as the guy's in on a losing team. If he has a phenomenal season, he's definitely in it. And growing up, it was never really like that.
I agree with you. I know.
So
I know it 100%. Yeah.
And looking at a guy averaging 36 points a game, playing in a tougher conference. Where he got his team from when they were out, and I'm with him when he said that he had part.
He helped getting them in that hole,
But see,
too.
the problem when you're saying that, you can't say someone helped getting you in that hole when your teammates are hurt. You did help getting that hole is.
It was a style of play though that kind of got him in that hole, and also at the same time, it was a style of play that got him out of the hole.
No, it was. I think it had more to do with the fact that the changes that they did in the offseason they weren't used to. Bizdelic wasn't there. They had to pull him out of retirement. They had to make up for Trevor Ariza missing initially. And then on top of that, compounded by, you got to remember how early Chris Paul went down. As soon as we was like, that's why you don't give him that money. Clint Capella going down. So he didn't dig a hole when the other two in his big three are gone. Digging a hole is I hate to say this, it's kind of if, let's just say, the beginning of the season before Oklahoma City went on that run in the middle of the year. Like, you could say that Russell put them in a hole with his bad shooting because they had their full accoutrement when it comes to the players on that team. You could say his performance hurt them because he wasn't playing well. But with James Harden, you can't necessarily say that when his guys were out. That's not on him that they're out. So that's my only thing as far as saying that he didn't necessarily dig it when the guys that help him dig are gone. If all the diggers are there and I'm not digging, then you can put that on me. But if the other diggers are gone, you just can't say I dug the hole.
He had to do what he had to do, as you said before, because the guys were out. But with Giannis, it's been consistent all the way through. Right. Now we just got to see if that blip, if it was truly a blip with Russ and it kind of goes back to normal, or, you could be 100% right. It could be James because of what he did when he was able to keep his team in the third seed in the West. 100%.
We're going to come back on the other side of this break and close this show out. Probably talk a little bit more NBA before we get up out of here, or just some of the stuff that took place in the sports world today. Dean Davis.
Yo, what's up? This is Rashid Hadi, and you're listening to the D and Davis Show. Yeah.
D and Davis Show, last segment of the show. I'm going to hit you with some quick hitters right here. First up, asked this before with Mr. Hub Arkush. Robbie Gould is holding out from the San Francisco 49ers. Now, this could be the simple fact that he doesn't want to be there. He wants to be closer to home.
Hey, I went after, and we talked about this. I don't know if we talked about it live.
What?
But we talked about this like a week ago, the Gronkowski leverage move that he pulled with the 49ers to get the New England Patriots to re-sign him, and Robbie Gould also points that out as a reason he doesn't care to be back.
But we're here in Chicago recording in 670 Score. Shout out to Mitch and everybody here taking care of us. If you're the Bears, do you go around? Do you make some phone calls? Like, I know you want to be back here.
They have already.
So this is the question. If you are the Bears and you're negotiating with the 49ers, what is the compensation in this? What do you have to give up to get a kicker? Because a lot of people and people we've had on the show is like, man, listen, you can find kickers on the street. That's the majority of the time. That's where Robbie Gould came from. That's where Robbie Gould came from. So why would you want to leverage some future, your future, maybe future pick for a
we're
kicker?
Talking about, Hub said 7th round picks,
pick, right?
So that wouldn't be terrible leverage. We're saying it'll probably be a 7 this year and a 7 next year. Maybe
I'd do that if that's the case.
See, my only thing is
getting back the most accurate kicker damn near ever.
Two things. One, you only got 5 draft picks this year. So I'm with you, though. Who knows if the 7th is going to be relevant?
Yeah.
But the thing is, the salary there Robbie would command. Is Robbie coming back, even though he wants to get paid, but not going to get paid what the 49ers were perhaps? Or what he was trying to get from the 49ers is what I should say.
Mm-hmm.
If they've been at a contract impasse because they don't think a kicker, I would think they know how great he is, but a kicker should deserve the type of salary that he's asking for. Do the Bears want to pay that? Is he going to come here and be willing, instead of perhaps seeking $5 million, take a $3 million deal, $3.5 million deal, so the Bears, who are getting closer to being cap hit, won't necessarily be constrained? Because again, and then even with that, what happens if this first year he isn't the Robbie that he's been out there in Santa Clara? I mean, he's going to be back at the lake, back with the swirling winds. I'm not saying he's going to be bad, because even when that last year where they released him, it was one of those things where kickers go through this. Like, that's what if you have a kicker for a decade, he's going to have a year where you be like, what you doing? You know, so kickers go through that. If you value him, you work through it. Now, Hub explained to us that it was his positional coach, or special team coach, was the guy that started to make the move to get Fox and Ryan Pace to get Robbie, out of the box. It'll be cool. I mean, the Bears, only reason I'll say the Bears should do it, because I will kind of say they shouldn't, the Bears are in the championship window. So if you're in the championship,
cherry on top.
Yeah, if you're in the championship window, and this is even going with Hub and the Jordan Howard thing, because to me, the only reason really to trade Jordan Howard now is because you're doing him a solid. And you felt like he stayed low last year and didn't complain when what the Bears were doing last year affects his contract value. Because if the Bears go, like with Nagy coming in, if he rushes again for 1,400 yards, the hype around him is going to be, people are going to be like, yeah, I know you know about Zeke and all that, but y'all need to be checking. Like, it's going to be out there. His value will be higher hitting free agency. Now it won't necessarily. So, because the Bears should have held on to him, because if there's a situation where a running back gets hurt, and you don't have an adequate running back the rest of the season, people are gonna be like, why the hell did you get rid of Jordan Howard? So that's my caveat as far as the Robbie situation. Go ahead.
Question for you guys with Robbie Gould. The McCaskies have always said, since Ryan Pace has been hired and even before then, they don't get involved with any type of player personnel stuff. Do you think that they may put some pressure on Ryan Pace, knowing it's the championship window, knowing that this would be a great PR redemption type story, something they can kind of sell on top of everything else that they have going on?
I mean, it would definitely be a feel-good thing, because I think Robbie is missed. But this is where your front office has to oversee or take over when it comes to like emotions and feelings and things of that nature. You got to look at your team and say, listen, does this work? Does he hurt the cap? You got to ask those kind of questions. I do personally believe that he probably is a cherry on top. Now, we got to make sure that Mitchell Trubisky takes another step. We got to see how Chuck Pagano influences defense. We got to make sure all these guys are healthy. The Bears, for the most part, had a pretty healthy season last year. Khalil Mack was out for a couple of games. Trubisky was out for a couple of games. But still, though, they came away clean.
Didn't have anybody
last
out
year.
Anybody that factored in out for the entire season.
Yeah, they came away very, very clean. So you have to kind of factor those things in. Like I said before, I do think that he probably is the cherry on top, but you can't let a redemption story or a PR feel-good story push away your actual X's and O's and your actual football knowledge. So I would hope they wouldn't influence that. I hope so. And who knows? It's their team. They make the decisions. But I hope they wouldn't do that.
I would think they would mention, hey, Robbie's out there. I think they would touch bases with Ryan Pace about it. That's what I think they would do. Like, we like him.
And they can be like, yeah, I know.
Yeah. I don't think, he going to be respectful. He ain't going to say it like that.
And?
Yes, sir.
Virginia, what your old ass want? I know he out there. You can see him. You can still see him.
Go talk to mommy.
Yeah. I think they would touch base with Ryan Pace and be like, what are your thoughts on it? And leave it at that. I think they would do their due diligence as far as checking in to see like, hey, what's going on with this Robbie thing? And after he tells them how he's looking at it and gives them his plan, I think they will allow him to execute his plan.
Yeah, Virginia ain't Jerry Jones.
Well, we're talking about Michael though, probably more than Virginia.
I don't even think Michael.
You mean George?
Thank you, George.
Yeah.
No, I'm still talking about Michael McCaffrey.
But George isn't like Jerry Jones. He's not that kind of an owner, I don't think. I think I'm with you, Ken. He'll probably just kind of...
Sweaty Teddy comes on in.
Robbie out there in them streets. You don't want to be there. What you think?
Get me Robbie Gould.
No, I don't see that.
Ben Roethlisberger is probably going to end up getting a new deal. But it looks like that before. I don't know if it's before the draft, but before camp opens up, the Pittsburgh Steelers. We knew he was going to get a new deal because it's clearly, and he was like, Antonio Brown to me, you got to get this black guy about it. Jokes. But
I hope that was not the case.
He's like, I like it when you talk like that, Ben. No, I'm joking. Roonies, of course, aren't that type of people. But no,
Rooney Rule, what? Give it to me right, Ben.
They don't even know.
The only, I mean, in a way, and I hate to say this about a championship-winning quarterback, they're caught between a rock and a hard spot, because a hard place. Because what are you going to do? Even though this guy has threatened to retire the last 3 seasons, what are you going to do when you got a quarterback this good and you're afraid of replacing him or the unassurance of replacing him, and you kind of got to go along with it?
Do you? He's 37 years old. The way the NFL goes, you can now have quarterbacks play into their 40s, maybe at least early 40s. I'm not going to say no further than that. Mm-hmm. Tom Brady is a freak of nature. Mm-hmm. Peyton Manning had a fused neck, but basically rode with the rest of the team to win another Super Bowl. I would hope that they would kind of look at him and say, okay, I know you want to get paid. Russell Wilson just got a hell of a deal, number 1 paid player in the NFL, no doubt. So I don't know if they would say like, okay, Ben, now you're the number 1 paid player in the NFL, but you are allotting a lot of money to a guy who, as Ken said, has already threatened you to leave, to retire, just flat out retire. And do you expect him to still be that same quarterback? Russell Wilson is he 30 yet?
No.
20, he's either 29 or 30.
How long is his deal?
Russell's is 6 years, I believe.
Yeah, so he's like 28.
He's 28? Okay,
somewhere
all right.
around there. Because he's only been in the league for 7 seasons.
Yeah, yes.
So he's around 28, I believe.
So you look at Ben.
He's supposed to be like 35 when this
deal's up.
Yeah.
So he's, you got it, Ryan?
Yeah, just 1 second.
Well, you have Ben Roethlisberger, who's 37 years old.
He's even young. You see those cornrows? He's growing. Russell Wilson's actually getting younger by the day.
Hey, shout out to him.
Sierra's Loving is the fountain of youth.
Listen, the brother is winning.
30.
Okay, he's 30 years
right,
old. Okay, he's 30 years old. But Ben is 37. So you're looking to extend him, maybe another 2-3 seasons?
Probably.
So what are we looking at?
2 years and an option, or 2 option years, basically, but he'll be back.
I think right now he has a salary, he's getting paid $21.8 million, I believe is the...
He's about to get $30 million.
So he's going to be 30 a season for another 2 or 3 years? Listen, Tomlin and the boys, I don't know if they ever had a below 500 season. They haven't made the playoffs every year, but they are consistent. And and Ben Roethlisberger, as we told Tony one day, he's consistent. He has 2 Super Bowls. This is what you're supposed to do. So I don't know. I don't know how long of extension you would want to give him or what he wants, but I'll be a little uneasy about getting Ben Roethlisberger.
How good is Ben Roethlisberger?
He's damn good. He said still. See, that's the question. That's what I'm asking. I don't know.
Especially, can he make it work with Juju Smith? Because he's lost Brown and he's lost Bell.
Mm-hmm. Now we're going to see. Because he still has this year left on his deal. It could be hey, show me what you got.
No, they're going to sign him before the season starts.
Okay, all right, there you go then. I don't know. I'm with you. I don't know.
I think he's probably around the 6th or 7th best QB in the NFL probably right now.
And the way they dishing out money, that's $30 million. That's probably right.
Last 2 years, though, lose to Blake Bortles and not in the playoffs.
Yeah, but think about it, a lot of people almost lost to that Jaguars team, even the Patriots. Like that Jaguars team from last year.
Bills almost beat them too, though.
True, but I mean, still, that team going into the season,
I hear you.
People had as a favorite. So I can't just put that one on you because that was a team right there, that Jags team.
The Steelers are consistent. That's the one thing you want to do in the NFL. It's not them. I would say the Patriots, at least in this Patriots dynasty era, is them and the Patriots probably the most consistent teams out there.
Probably.
Maybe next might be Baltimore. Maybe next will be Seattle. Seattle, yeah. It's not that many. And he's been at the driver's seat of it. So, man, I don't know. I'd be kind of leery about it.
All right. Frank Clark was traded from the Seattle Seahawks to the Kansas City Chiefs. Mm-hmm. He also got a whopping deal. He's just under Russell Wilson with the amount of guaranteed money. He got like $60 million guaranteed. We all know that the Chiefs traded Dee Ford to the 49ers and they let Houston go. I like this deal for Seattle because, I mean, you're going to if Frank Clark can command this type of salary. You cannot pay him and Russell Wilson.
No, you can't do that in football.
And knowing how well their general manager drafts outside of the offensive line, you can have confidence that he can get these extra picks. They only had, I was telling you guys before this trade was consummated, they only have 4 picks going into this draft. So to get additional picks helps them, let alone.
How many picks they get?
They got, what, 2 or 3?
2 or 3
And
more?
they switch spaces.
Yeah.
Like, so whoever the worst season gets to flip-flop the second-round picks this year. So, of course, the BC, I guess, I forget how that goes because Kansas City had the better
record,
record than them. But still, I like the job for Seattle. I don't know for Kansas City because I wonder the value. They know D Ford better than anybody, but I wonder the value they placed on him compared to Frank Clark and giving Frank Clark all this money. But I can say this as a caveat for the Kansas City Chiefs: their defense was terrible last year. So you can sit there and say, if you were on this defense and we sucked, then what's the point of giving you this money and knowing how he was necessarily in the locker room? But looking at Seattle and the moves they made and showing how this defense could come together last year on top of the play of Russell Wilson and getting back to the running game, I thought this was a good move by them.
Question with the Frank Clark thing. Do you think maybe what played into it, because I don't remember exactly what D4 got, but I'm sure they got similar money. But the Chiefs changed to Steve Spagnuolo as their defensive coordinator. More of a 4-3 base defense, even though you could stand up D Ford and still run your 4-3. But maybe that's why Frank Clark a little more appealing.
That's probably it. I'll give you that one, Ryan. That's probably, change
and
the
then
person.
You pair him up with Chris Jones on your defensive line, you're feeling pretty good about your pass rush.
A change at the coordinator position, they might say like, oh man, let's get this guy, he fits it better. And also too, you're not paying anything to Patrick Mahomes, so you can pay him.
Josh Gordon, if he gets off of NFL suspension, will be back with the Patriots. I believe he'll receive a little more than $2 million when he comes off of suspension whenever Roger Goodell allows him off. Who knows how long that'll be?
Yeah, he has the final say so how long he's going to be out, right?
Well, when they can reinstate
him.
Yeah, thank you, reinstate him. Good or bad move as far as the Patriots? I think it's a good move because he's not. What are you losing? You didn't spend a lot of draft capital for him. You're just keeping a talented guy if he wants to come back. The Patriots,
if he can come back,
exactly. The Patriots can navigate through troubled players, so it's not like other locker rooms having a troubled player in there. They've already had him there. We've talked about him missing meetings and the issues that he's going through. They definitely had that terrific article that came out a couple years ago when he was almost coming back. Forget if it was in the Sports Illustrated, the Players. It was ESPN, I believe. Terrific article. So wish him the best. And again, the Patriots are doing the Patriots. It's a sound move that can't hurt you.
It's kind of like when you're in a fantasy draft and you just get that guy who's going to be out for a while. It's like, you know what? When he right, I'm going to bring him out.
And they got
boom,
2 of those guys with Demaryius Thomas, too.
They're making Patriot moves. This is why they're consistently. This is why, yes, they're an oddity when it comes to football, but the reason why they're an oddity because they do things right. They're a well-run organization.
Basically every time, too.
Damn near every time. Six Super Bowls? My goodness, man.
Doing something right.
Yeah. So the Los Angeles Lakers, Showtime, interviewed Jason Kidd for their head coaching position. Thoughts on that, guys?
Dumb. So the guys that are in
we know what Ryan feels.
So we're looking at Jason Kidd being a former great NBA great. You look at Tyronn Lue, his connection with LeBron James and being a former Laker. And then you're looking at Juwan Howard, who went to college with Matt Pelinka and also played on the team and coached LeBron James.
So 2 of LeBron's homeboys.
And it was who was a third? Monty Williams, but Monty Williams looks like he's going to end up
with Phoenix.
Yeah, Monty Williams is going to end up.
I know Phoenix wants him.
They got that's why they got Igor. Probably they kind of doing
they fired him
what
today. Yesterday.
Sacramento, I think today.
Yeah,
kind of what Sacramento did as far as with not Mike Malone, with who's Sacramento's coach that just got Joker, right?
Oh, Dave Yeager.
Yeager, thank you. With Yeager, yes. I meant to say Yeager. So that's who Phoenix wants. So you can think Monty Williams may be out of it. It's plus with all that talent that Phoenix has, and you put Monty Williams in there, they may be able to take off.
Should be able to do it. Another high draft pick coming up too.
I don't think it's bad. If you're asking me, I love Jason Kidd. If you're asking me if I want him to coach my team, not yet. I didn't see enough with Milwaukee, and I forgot about his run with the Nets. right after retirement. So, no, I mean, I think the Lakers are pulling out of a small bag, and it goes to this philosophy of having some type of connection. And I know, and when I'm saying that, that's being naive, because usually with any job, a lot of times people have a connection to get that job. Mm-hmm. But I think with any organization, when that starts to hinder you, as it seems to start hindering the Lakers as far as you have to have a Laker connection, it may be wise to flip it up and do something different. I think Tyronn Lue's going to get the job, but I have no problem with them interviewing Jason Kidd. But it seems like a fait accompli that Tyronn Lue, out of the guys they named, seems like the best guy to do it. And he's the only guy that's won it as a coach as far as winning a championship.
True. I mean, Jason Kidd is a L.A. guy from California. I don't know. Did he grow up in L.A.?
He's from the Bay Area.
From the Bay Area, right.
Because he's under the Gary Payton tree.
Yeah. So he's a California kid, though. So he'll be back home, obviously. But it comes down to who's comfortable and able to coach, quote unquote, I'm putting my fingers up there, Coach LeBron James, and able to kind of work what they have right now. We don't even know if this team is going to look like this team at the beginning of the season, because you still got the off. You're going to have the off season coming up, and then you have the draft, and trades can possibly still happen. So it's going to come down to exactly how LeBron favors this. I'm sure Jenny Buss and what's the
Rob
GM?
Pelinka.
Rob Pelinka is talking to LeBron James and probably his crew, if you want to say. But it comes down to that.
Okay,
You just got to
Phil Jackson. Okay, Phil Jackson.
What?
His crew.
What's wrong with his crew?
Say his management. Next, you're going to say his posse.
Well, good point. Good call. But I think everything has to go through LeBron James right now, and deservedly so. He's the greatest player in the NBA right now.
Do you think they would get along?
Jason
Kidd's the head coach, LeBron's player, and calm
he's
plays?
kind of prickly. I think he's kind of prickly, and I think
he wore out his welcome everywhere he's gone.
But Giannis loved him, though.
Yeah, and that's what I was going to say. He can't come in and say, like, listen, if he want to steal some of that shine what's going on in Milwaukee, he's like, man, listen, look what I kind of developed up there. Man, you need to go ahead and let me kind of work this way with these younger guys. LeBron ain't going to be here forever. I won't go nowhere, though. Come on, Jenny. He can at least kind of say that when it comes to in the interview status, but no, man, Ty Lue, he's won a championship with LeBron James. Obviously, like I said before, LeBron James is going to be a big influence on this decision. But no, it's cool that he got. I want to see guys get other opportunities and other chances and other interviews within the NBA. You know what I'm saying? It's good to see that too.
Did love Jason as a player.
I loved
him.
Oh yeah.
Strongly loved him. One of the greatest point guards of all time.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if he won that title, it would have been cemented. But he just didn't have.
He got a title.
No, I meant like when he was the lead dog
with
with
the Nets. Yeah,
that would.
I mean, they just went up to the jug. They went against the juggernaut, though.
Yeah.
Pistons beat him.
Yeah, but that's also
I know.
because
I'm just kidding.
Karl Malone was hurt.
Yeah, but Karl Malone wasn't hurt. That wouldn't have been. No, they would have probably won that series.
If Karl Malone was playing like he played against KG in the conference finals,
and
you add him to what took place with Detroit.
That was 40-year-old Karl Malone too.
People
He
forget,
was still hooping.
Gary Payton didn't fit well. Both of them didn't necessarily fit great in the triangle, but Karl Malone was averaging like 16 and 9.
Yeah,
right. Like
he was hooping.
Yeah, like and it's Karl Malone.
And he's number 3.
Yeah, like he's getting 16 and 9 because he has to wait till Kobe and Shaq gets theirs before he gets his. When he used to just eat with having one of the greatest passers in the game, and John Stockton set him up in Utah.
Mailman.
Did he play in any of those games in the finals?
No, he was hurt.
Wait, he got hurt in the Western Conference Finals, right?
Mm-hmm, got hurt.
All right.
Yeah, so think about if you had him and Kobe was trying to get Shaq out of it. Let's keep it buck real quick. No, that's about it.
Your pick, right? I don't mean to cut you off, but your pick right now is Tyronn Lue to get that job.
Yeah, I think it is. To me, to be honest with you, he wouldn't be my pick. I think if I was someone, and I know you're worried about this, and this is the only problem. You have this small window with LeBron, and you don't want to waste a lot of time with it. Tyronn Lue has been there. I would give LeBron what he has never had, and I would try to find either who's a great coach right now that's a chance that I may be able to pull to me. Now, most of the great coaches have good organizations, and why would you want to go to an organization that, even though they brought LeBron, seems to still be in turmoil with what happened with Magic Johnson and Rob Pelinka, whatever took place with the Lakers? But I would either look to get a great coach right now that's on another team, and I could say a coach that's retired, and the only guy that sticks to my mind, I will wonder if people would feel like he's too old, and he almost coached LeBron at one point in Cleveland, would be Larry Brown. And, you say that, but Larry Brown. Look, Larry Brown.
And I ain't heard that name in a while. Didn't this team get the death penalty not that long ago?
Hey, he was trying to win. Hey, wait. Doesn't SMU always kind of get close to the death penalty? They feel like if they don't get close to the it's like, man, wait, y'all got the death penalty? Not y'all ain't trying hard enough.
Booster Central over there.
So
yeah, I don't know if anybody out. I don't know. It'll be. I do think if which name wasn't up in New York, he'll have a good shot.
He definitely would.
Fizdale. Thank you, David Fizdale. Yeah, he definitely would. But I like the fact of Juwan Howard name being kind of put out there too. I like that too.
Do anything for you? The Sacramento Kings coach that was let go?
Nah, probably not. It's gonna have to. That coach's gonna have to have a little bit of name, some kind of way.
What about Monty Williams?
I kind of would have felt that Monty one. But again, he's not a championship coach. But I haven't had an affinity for Monty Williams since he was a player at Notre Dame, and he had a heart issue. So I'm kind of biased when it comes to Monty Williams. But I think that I would look like, again, Eric Spoelstra's not leaving Miami.
No. There's rumors out there talking about Jenny's trying to get a big name
Riley.
and Pat Riley coming
Pat
to
Riley
us.
has ownership. Look, Pat Riley has ownership of Miami. That's why he left the Knicks.
He had to sell it, and Jenny had to give him some of the ownership out there in LA.
If he's going to come back there.
Oh, yeah. No doubt. Which is probably not going to happen.
You know
he's
that
gonna
Carlisle.
move cross country at his age?
Man, please.
He all right.
Either way, he's in the fun and the sun. He's like, this feel the same.
This man life is silk.
But Carlisle's not going to leave Mark Cuban with the fact that Mark Cuban trusts him. I don't think Brad Stevens would leave the Boston, even though Brad Stevens hasn't really had a good year, and we're talking about vets who have equity in the NBA.
Wasn't Izzo in the running to be the Cleveland Cavaliers coach at one point?
Yes, but LeBron left. But I wouldn't bring in a college coach in this situation either, because he still has to learn how to do it. Let's not forget Izzo getting in the kid's face, and I'm not knocking him getting in the kid's face, but that form of going at a player,
it's the NBA. He
can't use that in the NBA. So it wouldn't be time to do that.
And that's a gamble. Look at like Billy Donovan.
Yeah,
at Oklahoma City.
It hasn't worked out. And I love
Has he been
Billy
that
Donovan.
much better than?
Yeah, he has.
Winning
Scott Brooks.
Scott Brooks?
Yeah.
I mean, he's better.
I'll tell you this: if he had KD now, because it took him, he had to learn.
True.
And think about it, he only had KD 1 year. You threw him in there, and he's getting used to the NBA. If he had these seasons now with KD, I think that team, look at where it's at now, would be better, because we know KD usually has been healthy after the foot injuries have been taken care of. And I think Scotty Brooks, man, was just rolling the ball out, and you would have thought he would have been changes when he got to Washington, and it necessarily wasn't. So I still would say, because look, again, we're talking about the pros versus college. Billy Donovan has won in the college back
to back. Yeah.
So I still would give him and say he's a better coach, because you have to say he has less talent than what Scott Brooks. So let's not forget, Scott Brooks had James Harden come off the bench. All right, like, think about that.
Ibaka.
Yeah, like, I mean, the amount of talent that Scotty Brooks had compared to Billy Donovan had. Just think about that. I think if you gave Billy Donovan 4 years with that, they probably would have lost in the final. Probably.
That's what happened to Scott Brooks, though. He lost in the final.
Yeah, but still, you get what I mean.
So when Oklahoma City loses to Portland, and then they're watching Durant versus Harden, are they all throwing up to themselves?
Easily. It's not even a question, because you're also feeling like we're never going to get further than this. And the fact of how Russ plays.
Is he the worst out of those three?
But
yeah.
Who?
Out
Russ?
of James Harden and out of KD. Yeah, he is. Yes, James Harden is a better player than, regardless of how you feel about him defensively, James Harden, if you ask me that I can start my team with James Harden or Russell Westbrook, I'm taking James Harden every day.
And Kevin Durant's just an obvious.
It's not even a question.
It's not a question about that.
Look at what James Harden did by himself. Think about this. What James Harden did by himself in Houston.
Yeah.
Russ hasn't done that. Russ hasn't gotten 50 wins by himself in the West.
James Harden is a clear number one. The thing with Russ, you got to have that number two, or he can be the number two.
But he has to play with him.
But true. But if Paul George's shoulders wasn't banged up, this series would probably be a little bit more competitive than what it is.
But the problem would
they got one game out of it, and that's the one game I think Paul George was like 30-something points.
The Trailblazers don't have Nurkic.
They don't. But you look at what Portland's been able to do, though. This is the second or third year they've been in the number 3 seed. They're a damn good team.
Yeah.
They're a damn good team.
Oh, yeah.
You can't take that away. You can't say that about Oklahoma City. No, so
No, I think the problem, even if Paul George was healthy, they would be better. But it's still about Russ.
My man was in MVP conversation.
He really wasn't. He was in
MVP conversation.
That's what people were saying. Even when they were saying
Paul
it,
George was balling.
Let me ask you a question.
He was balling. He's not better than James Harden.
How you gonna be MVP when another dude on your team is getting a triple-double?
Because that's what Russ do, right? Didn't we establish that?
Saying,
that's what Russ do.
It's not even his team.
I agree. He's not the name, but I think what we're trying to. I think
how much think about it like this?
What I'm trying to say
out of
is
everybody else that's in the MVP,
in
the MVP race, their team wins and falls, and all the blame is placed on them. He's not even getting that.
I understand what you're saying, and you're right about that. All I'm trying to say is with Russ, he needs that super number 2 if he's.
He needs to be the number 2. That's the thing. He needs to fall into number 2.
And that was a good thing about Russ this season, though, allowing, because he could be very bullheaded, you know what I'm saying, allowing Paul George to flourish. That's why I was kind of like, whoa, okay, this might work. And they had a hell of a run. All I'm trying to say is when Paul George's shoulders went limpy, they didn't have that series against Portland, but hey,
I need
it is
more
what it
tape.
is.
Funny thing.
Tape me up,
it just crossed my mind. It just crossed my mind. With the amount of people bailing on Russell Westbrook, and it definitely sounds like we're doing that, but what we're saying, we're just stating facts. Man, AI didn't get this type of heat from just playing the way he played. People champagned and I was a person like, yeah, he can play point guard a little bit more. Right? Or make it
nice.
work.
It didn't work with anybody.
Make it work with a Jerry Stackhouse. Right? Like, you know what? I can take 5 less shots and get you open and get guys involved. But at the end of the game, Larry Hughes. At the end of the game, I can get to be an AI or whatever, knowing that you could have your spots to gun out, but get everybody going and going out and allow the team, because basically the 76ers finally had to figure out, we just got to totally build this team around him instead of trying to kind of do it the old-fashioned way and having 2 guards and not him being the quasi-combo guard. So, but again, my only point, now everybody's like, man, Russ is doing like that. AI did the same thing, and he's a legend. And I'm not saying he shouldn't be a legend.
But AI, at his size and what way he did it, he was able to take a team on his back to the NBA Finals. Russ hasn't been able to do that.
Well, they did go to the Finals.
He's an MVP. No, I'm saying, but
I know you're saying it was all on him.
Yeah, it was all on
also,
AI.
he was in a weak East too.
Hey, I mean, you play when you play. You can't help it when you came out your mama.
Hey, I can't help it that LeBron got all them Finals appearances because he was in a weak ass East.
Oh, that's 100%. I mean, also too, he was the teams down in Miami. He's like super teams. So yeah, he should went to 4 straight finals.
Still, the East teams in the East over the last 15 years have had a very easy road to hoe.
That's very true. I get that.
Or both.
All right, hey, make sure you listen to us on iTunes, SoundCloud, Google Music, Stitcher, and the TuneIn app. Also on Spotify and War on Anchor. There you go. YouTube as well. Simply search for the D and Davis Show and D and Davis Flip. We are everywhere, everybody, so definitely check us out. And as Tony says, give us that 5-star rating. Share, like, comments. We want all that. Give us all that. You like it, you don't like it. Hey, we just want to see it. Follow us on Twitter and Instagram at D and Davis Show. Once again, it's at D and Davis Show. Facebook.com/D and Davis Show. Gmail is D and Davis Show at gmail.com. I'm on Twitter at Demons1. Ken's on Twitter at That's Davis. Ryan at Ryan B. Ski. Guy at Pay the Guy.
Hey, that guy. Look, we want to thank Hub Arkush. Make sure you follow the score. Follow the score all the times, but follow them in particularly for Hub Thursday from 6 to 10. And then Julie and Arthur Archer is going to pick it up as following the covering the draft. And yes, the Bears don't have a pick, but this is still going to be great coverage. You know the type of work that the score does, so make sure you follow them. Always shout out to Mitch. We want to thank Micheal Lee from The Athletic for joining us. We're definitely going to look forward to having him down in the future. Definitely a fun discussion. And just look, make sure you check out Dan Davis, the Flip this weekend. We're going to have guests on. It's probably going to be pretty entertaining. So keep rocking with that, and we'll be back giving you Dan Davis the Show next week, giving you the wrap-up of the draft, of the playoffs, and what's taking place in the MLB as we start to shift to the MLB as the draft goes away and the NBA starts to dwindle down to the championship game. Look, if you don't hear from us again, that's terrible. But the main point is don't do anything stupid before you hear from us again.
Keep your hands to yourself.